Welcome, welcome, everybody. How is everybody doing? We're about to get started here on this panel. I am super stoked. It should be fun. We're discussing marriage. So hopefully it'll be pretty interesting. So we will see what happens. I'm going to go live onto the panel now so you can hear everybody else talking, and hopefully it'll be a good one. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.
Such a roller coaster of emotions. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well.
Chat, you baka.
All right. Let's do it then. Great. Hello, everyone. To my panelists and to my audience. We are doing the small council right now, which we do Saturdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have an amazing group of guests here for you. I'm actually quite excited with the individuals we had gathered. So I'll start introducing them first with someone that I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Dancing Spoon. Sneaky Debate Man. Sneaky Debate Man has been a long time moderator here. Some nonsense happened and he couldn't be around anymore, but now he's back. I'm so happy. I love this guy and he's back with us
everything's
after
good.
many months.
Everything's good.
Pretty good. I'm pretty
living
good.
the dream.
I'm glad
Kids
to be
are doing
back.
awesome.
Definitely missed being here. So should be a fun time. Spoon isn't exciting. I know internet gas, all right, but I'm a staple. Okay, I'm beyond exciting.
Sneaky Debate Man.
Thank you, Thomas,
sneaky.
for a bunch of bits, and thank you, Spoon. I'm so happy to have you back, my man. All right, next, another person I'm unbelievably excited to have here too. We've been trying to get this person on for a while, and today, yes, it's finally here. Fawn, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I might.
How are my sound levels? Are they pretty good?
At some points. I'm sorry. But yes, I'm finally here. I'm very happy.
Hopefully my sound levels are coming across well.
To have been able to join finally. I don't know. I'm sorry it took so long.
It's perfectly fine. It was building anticipation for this very moment. Right? No, I'm a little sorry too because you first came on months ago where we had that Destiny Vosh thing that you just happened to walk into. Then I was like, oh, this is fun. I follow her on Twitch and she's here. And also, I don't have time for her because this huge drama is happening. So, really bad.
No, placate to the drama.
Because I think I first joined it because Vosh joined, and then I was like, oh, this could be like a fun, interesting, different kind of deal. And then Destiny joined, and I was like, oh, now it's just these two.
Yeah.
Absolutely fighting it out. But no, it made sense. I was like, it's okay.
Loud.
I didn't expect it to be about me on days like that.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully that's better.
It's about you now, and I'm very excited to have you. All right.
Yay.
Next we have Nathan Galang, another moderator here on this channel, a great moderator, trusty moderator, and just a loyal supporter of this community. How you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing good. That's all I gotta say for now. I'm doing good. I know I said a lot about the Among Us earlier, so very looking forward to this discussion.
Do you have it with you? Can you show it?
I don't have it with me, though. I do have this amazing Instagram story of it that's gone now, but
okay. So you have nothing.
Here. Oh my god. My camera's too close. There you go.
Oh, cute. Wait.
Beautiful.
Should I show mine?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry, I'm sidetracking. No,
keep going. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, you can do it. You can while I get
okay, you introduce.
Next is Biggs. We've had here a few times. Love to have Biggs around. his calm, interesting opinions that he brings to the table that are usually completely opposite of mine. I love it. So Biggs, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Prime. Thanks for having me on tonight. My name's Biggs, like Prime mentioned. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at Biggs8500. I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm not sure how it's going to go. You may be surprised with some of my opinions, actually, Prime. I think we may have more agreement on this topic. Maybe. We'll see. But thanks for having me, and thanks for all the other panelists here. So I'm excited.
Makes things interesting. Okay. All right. I'm intrigued. Last but not least, a person who I have not actually met before. I've only heard of his legend. But T-Jump, nice to meet you. Tell my audience and the world about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm T-Jump. I run a philosophy YouTube channel where I debate professors, philosophers, theologians, usually on reasons to believe in a God, epistemology, morality, and politics. Same with Twitch, so Twitch or YouTube/T-Jump.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. All right. Do you have it?
The Among Us plushies.
Wait,
Very nice.
Okay.
Very nice.
I made
yeah.
them.
Oh, you made
Oh
them.
shoot!
Yeah,
Nice. They actually look really, really good.
they're so cute.
Yeah.
They look dope.
All right. So
So these guys will be joining me today.
yeah, she's not
You're
making it up
welcome.
like Nathan is. All right, great. So
Next
All right.
next time,
all right.
I'll get
well,
I'll get it I'll get it back tomorrow. Don't worry.
we shall see. All right. So this topic actually came from Fawn. This was her idea. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to introduce this, and we'll start with. After that, I will do every individual person will have a chance to do an introduction, give their initial opinions, and we'll go from there. All right. So, topic. The topic is: in recent decades, people have been putting off marriage for longer and longer. This is happening for many reasons, including economic and social. Is the institution of marriage still relevant? Do you think that society is better when most couples are married? Do you think it makes that big of a difference to the children and that are produced if their parents are married? And what about gay couples? Was the institution of marriage worth winning after all those decades of struggle? All right. Because it was Fawn's idea, we'll start with Fawn or way around. Go ahead, Fawn.
I chose this. Well, I chose this topic. I suggested this topic because I actually just saw like a random influencer that I follow, talking about it or like asking people for their opinions, like followers for their opinions. And I was like, actually, that's just I don't know. Marriage is, I feel like a broad enough topic that people have a lot of different opinions on it. And I definitely, growing up being raised as a female, um, I definitely always felt the expectation that it was just normal that I would get married one day, that I would marry a man one day, and that I would have a wedding and and kids and all of those those kind of expectations. And so I always fantasized about like a wedding and what that would look like. Like even in high school, me and my friends would like, we had like Pinterest boards of like wedding inspiration and like all of these, like dress pictures and like, oh my God, I would want it to be like this theme and this color palette. Like it was I feel like it was more about the wedding than like actual marriage. And like you would kind of do that even without someone in mind to marry or while you're still even exploring your sexuality and stuff. But it was always assumed that it was going to be like a heterosexual marriage, a heterosexual relationship. And I think that as I learned more about feminism as I grew up and became a feminist and a leftist, I kind of I became quite jaded quite quickly with the idea of marriage. And I don't really like what marriage itself stands for, like, or like used to stand for. I know that it has changed over the years, but I don't like the idea of like a dowry, which doesn't really happen anymore, but I don't like that kind of that you sell your daughter. And I still don't like the tradition of being given away like by the father. I think it gives me the ick. It's so antiquated, and my parents are very conservative Christians, by the way. So they have full expectations for me to get married, have a wedding, um, and do all of that stuff, and get married, possibly even in a church. And and if I said to them, I don't want dad to give me away because I'm not fucking property, they would probably be quite offended at that, and they would probably and I don't actually think that I want to get married. I've already disappointed them by telling them that I don't want children. But I think that it would absolutely break them if I was like, I don't think marriage is necessary. That's basically what it comes down to. I'm sorry, I have so many thoughts on this, but I don't think that it's necessary. And I think that it's nice if you want to do it, but I don't see any point to it other than, I don't know, maybe some like social security benefits or something from the government, maybe, but you kind of get that after a while anyways. Ugh, I don't know. I think that if you want to be with someone forever, you can just do that. And you don't need to spend a whole lot of money, and you don't need to get the government involved.
Okay. Thank you so
Sorry, I was
much.
rambly.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Hey, and we have time. We have time for the ramble, honestly.
Good.
Thank you so much. We're gonna go counterclockwise, so we'll go to Spoon next. Spoon.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what Fawn is saying about like how we're very much socialized into this institution of marriage. Like little girls are taught like, oh, you know, you'll have a husband, you'll have kids, and blah blah blah. And, it's not like necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either, right? Like this like having a child, having a family, right? It's not like a bad thing, right? It's not. The issue with this is that we encourage people to do this and not other things. It's like you should follow this pathway. If you're not following this pathway, there's something wrong with you. There's something terrible about this. And like historically, again, this speaks broadly to marriage. It's been used to subjugate women. Like you said, women are given away like property. Women are obviously bought with like dowries and stuff like that. And like arranged marriages, not always, but tend to be in favor of the man. And like the broader family, which would be headed by a man, historically speaking. However, I'm a bit traditional in this sense. So there are actually a lot of benefits to this. I think maybe a bit of a spicy take, but I am but we are like a pair bonded species, right? It does seem to be that we do better in pairs, right? I know there's this whole argument about like it takes a village and like communal raising and stuff like that. At least from the study I've seen, it does seem to be that 2-parent households, and not more and not less, tend to be the most productive and the most beneficial for children. And there is benefits to that. For example, like being in a marriage, being with one partner does seem to be beneficial, not just in terms of like the
I'm actually
social
surprised
aspect
that
of it, but in terms
Spoon
of,
is
like,
taking this take.
specifically how we raise children
Proud of
and
him.
how we go on with our
Proud
lives.
of you,
Like, for
Spoon.
example, if you're married, you're more likely to live longer. You're more likely to be financially stable. Your children are more likely to be like healthy and happy. However, Fawn again makes a very good point. You don't necessarily need to be married to do any of this. You can just be with your partner. And it is kind of odd. It does seem kind of odd to me that the state specifically encourages a religious convent to sanctify this. It is odd. And you know, I'm 20. I'll be 26 in like a month or so, right? So like this kind of thing is like coming up to my horizon. I'm not going to get married anytime soon. Yeah, I'm not going to get married anytime soon, but this is sort of coming onto my horizon, right? Again, like socially, when you get to about 30, you're expected to be like settling down, right? And I've talked to my girlfriend about this, and it seems like we don't really care about getting married. Like being together is the point of being together, right? It's not about having it sanctified by any institution. It's about being with that person. However, there are some great benefits to getting married, like tax breaks and like healthcare, like shared between them, like dual citizenship. my girlfriend's not from England. I could become a citizen in somewhere else, and she could become a citizen here. There are some fantastic benefits to that. However, I've looked into this, and basically all of these benefits apply for a civil partnership as well, and it's a completely secular arrangement, which then begs the question, should the state be incentivizing this? Well, yeah, it does seem to be, they should be incentivizing that we get together and we have kids. It does actually seem to be beneficial for us and our offspring. So as much as I don't actually like the institution of marriage and this very outdated religious belief and this patriarchal aspect of it, the actual outcomes of marriage, when done properly, or not necessarily marriage, but monogamy, do seem to be something that we should encourage and that we should have, but it's not necessarily for everyone.
Thank you. Let's go to Nathan.
Yeah, so for me, I think the most important aspect of a marriage is the happiness of the two individuals. So, I mean, if someone doesn't want to go through that process,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
completely
speaking
fine.
next. I can't wait.
Or you know what? Sometimes it's not even just two individuals, right? Could be 3, 4, whoever. As long as they're happy, that's the most important thing to me. For me personally, I would say I want to get married, the sort of, I guess, what we perceive as normal. Not in like a weird like property way, but I just want to have the Mr. and Mrs. eventually, you know what I'm saying? I'm just chill that way, I guess. But I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, all that matters to me is the happiness of who I'm with and myself. And if we want to get married in the regular way, we're gonna do that. And I encourage everyone to do things based on what they feel is correctly. Now, when I try to think of like the bigger picture of like the state involvement, the country, and all that stuff, I've seen a lot of individuals really emphasize like, oh my God, society's falling apart. We have such a big divorce rate and all that shit. They're saying like society is dependent on marriage. I find that silly. And I think we would see marriage rates go up and more stable marriages if people were not stressed out by finances. And when we have a situation where 50% of the people make $35,000 or less, yeah, people are going to not stay married and have unstable relationships. So, I mean, for the people that really care about the institution of marriage, I would encourage focusing on economic and social change if you want to see that. But otherwise, focus on what makes you happy.
Thank you. Biggs.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So, I personally am actually against the institution of marriage overall. I think a lot of these things should just be between the people. But I also think that one of the things that gets missed by this push for marriage in general is that I think it should be more towards finding somebody that you can be with to help be more beneficial to each other. I very much believe that a relationship should be something where the two parts make a greater whole. Now, I don't necessarily think marriage is required for that, but there's a lot of practical things you can take too. So like for me, I'm married. I don't know if T-Jump is married, but everybody else here appears not to be married. I went through the marriage because my wife is religious, her family's religious, and I felt that it was the proper thing to do. But I do think that the civil union stuff is very important. Like Spoon had said, there's a lot of benefits you get from that. There's a lot of safety nets you get because of that. There's a lot more rights you get to the being able to spend time with your loved ones, especially if there's something that's like an illness. Same thing like with Spoon said with insurances and things like that. But what I would say, my best advice to the young people out there is try to find somebody that you can spend time with and be comfortable with to help split like the cost of living and things like that. It doesn't even have to necessarily be like a romantic relationship either. Just having somebody that you can count on, maybe like a best friend, because when you think about it, especially like with the struggles that are going on right now with like rent being so high and all these things, like basically when you bring another person in with you, not only do you double the income, but you have the cost. And I know that's not like a direct correlation. It's, there's a little bit of fluctuation there because obviously more food, more utilities, all that. But I think people should take longer time to find out who they're connecting with And then if they want to get married, they can, but I don't think it's something we should be forcing people to do, because it's just like expected. Because I think that's kind of, it's one thing to like appease your family and stuff like that. Because I was, I did that, and I love my wife, and I'm so thankful that we did. But I think that it's something that people just should choose to do on their own. It shouldn't be expectations. I don't think you should let your family or anybody else pressure you into these situations. As far as it goes with some of the other points in the question, I don't know if you wanted to get like the full topics or just kind of like break it down. But as far as like same-sex couples, to me, I think that same-sex couples should be allowed to adopt and to have children however they decide to do it. The one caveat I do have to that is if you are in a same-sex marriage and you have a child, I think it should be more. You should have a more expectation to have whatever the opposite sex is, some type of role model to fill the gap. Because I think that there is something that can be beneficial to having, a man or a woman in those respects. I think it can be beneficial, but I don't think it's necessarily required. But I think that having, like, a lot of my friends that are in same-sex marriages, they had like uncles and aunts and things like that they had other role models to fill those gaps. But again, I think it's all things equal. I think it's perfectly reasonable, and I think just as long as people are happy, they should pretty much be able to do whatever they want.
Thank you. T-Jump.
Yeah, so my position is looking at all the papers and data on the topic. There's a clear indication that marriage has a positive impact in lowering poverty, lowering crime rates, improving child's outcomes. We know that for whatever reason, marriage as an institution is very successful in human interactions, which is why the government gives tax breaks for it. It produces a better society overall. And it's not to say that it can't be done without marriage, it's just harder. For more people, this kind of arrangement seems to produce better effects on average at a much higher rate than average, which is why governments promote it. And the facts bear that out. And so because the facts bear that out, it is obviously a good policy that we should try to encourage, obviously not enforce or try to force people into it. If you don't want to be married, then don't, perfectly fine. But because it does have a demonstrable positive impact on society, promoting it and supporting it is definitely a good thing. Like training for any kind of a sport. If we know that doing this activity makes you better at the sport, then we should absolutely promote that activity because it makes you better able to fulfill your life goals. And we know that marriage is one of those things, one of the best indicators of successful lives, that you won't be in poverty, that you won't commit crimes, that you will have a relatively successful life. And so we should definitely promote it as a means to fulfilling your life goals because it's demonstrated to be such a thing.
Thank you. Okay, open to the panel.
So I did want to bring up something that I forgot to mention too, is one of the things where I think that marriage has kind of in general failed. When you look at the statistics like T-Jump brought up, you find that over 50% of marriages do end in divorce. And I think that there's a lot of, I mean, obviously we know that there's effects on children and things like that, but I think we fail to realize the effects that it has on the actual people in that relationship. And sometimes I think that if we're already at a 50% failure rate, is that 50% that, maybe they could have been better off had they not got married. Now, I know there's still like relationship problems and things like that, but when you add marriage and all the legalese type things,
the legal stuff and the financial.
Exactly.
And I think like a very important distinction to make here is it's not marriage specifically, like the institute, like the Christian institution of marriage or whatever institution of marriage you ascribe to. It's having a partner, right? Having somebody who you can economically depend on, having somebody you can socially depend on. It's not marriage itself, it's partnership.
And I don't think that needs to be romantic either. I thought that like Biggs, that was a really good point, because that, honestly, I know this is like personal and anecdotal, but
don't worry, I'm just
that's what I'm
trust me,
here.
I'm not gonna say anything too bad, okay? I'm just being contrarian tonight because it's interesting. I'm trying to see if I can get the lefties to be more
I don't see
right-leaning and conservative
in a marriage, but I see myself being in a long-term partnership with my best friend. That is kind of the life that I see myself living, is that with my best friend, who's been my best friend since we were 5 years old. We have very similar ideals and very similar kind of
And
life,
also, babe,
goals,
talking
and I
to,
see me and her living
the
together
general average
for
people, not
as
us.
long as
Okay,
as
we did
long
what was
as
right for
we
us,
as
and
long
that's
as
what
we
I'm
need
advocating
to,
for, is
and
people doing what's right
as
for
long as we
them.
want to
But I'm just saying
financially
there are
support
a
each
lot
other
of
and
red flags when it
make
comes to
a
like
good,
marriage and stuff like that, as far as
stable
like
partnership, because it's
the
hard to do it by
amount of
yourself.
stress and stuff it has on the people and their children
Yeah,
and
I
all
think, I
that.
think the only issue with that is like child rearing, right? Like unless you want to like
Well,
raise a
we don't
child
want
with your
we
best
don't
friend.
want
Oh, there you go,
children,
right? You don't want to raise a
but
child,
yeah,
yeah.
there would obviously be differences if
Yeah.
one of us had wanted children.
Yeah, I think everybody's getting at the same kind of message of like, obviously you should just do whatever makes you happy, right? But this sort of opens up this broader question of, should we be incentivizing people to behave like this? Should society be structured around that we should like be together, right? Because the issue is not that we encourage people to be together, but by encouraging people to be together, we discourage people from
I
being
will
alone.
say,
Don't
when we, like,
censor
look at
me.
from the
Censorship is
policy
bad.
perspective, right? It would not. It would be nice if, at an economic level, forget like the whole social aspect of it, if we could get to a point where one person in a household could like pay for everything. That's not saying that I want to go back to traditional roles or go back to tradition or anything like that. But like, I mean, when we think of the reasons why many marriages don't work, is because of things like economics. Is because people are poor, and money is a cause of stress, and stress is a cause of divorce. So
Yeah.
for the people that really care about like marriage and really want to see it happen and really want to see it still exist, what I would suggest to them is to make sure people have economic opportunity, to make sure you can have people living less stressful lives, and we need to raise wages. But at the end of the day, well, the reason why I kind of like that on like a policy perspective, because it will make people happier, not because I'm trying to protect some old institution, you know?
No, I think there's definitely an argument to be made of like when marriage was just absolutely the norm. Everyone got married, like the kind of original idea of marriage was that one person would stay at home and take care of the house and take care of the children. That was a full-time job. And the other person was the breadwinner, and they could survive like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in this modern society, you just can't. And that puts a lot of strain on relationships. And that doesn't mean that, oh, we have to go back to that. But it's like, yeah, what incentive for this extremely expensive institution of actually getting married, having a wedding, if you really want to go out, have a honeymoon, and then what if you get divorced? What if there's kids involved? What if you need to pay child support and you're back on single income, but you have kids to take care of? It's just it doesn't make sense to me in this. It's not financially viable, and I would like to see it be more financially viable. Honestly, I think that people should be incentivized to do it. I just don't see that incentive, so I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is,
So
this is like very specific to like marriage, is in like the marriage under the church, right? Like, so for example, in England, the marriage license is about £2,000. A civil partnership is 50 quid. It's £50.
What?
Yeah, it's like it's the
That's
same benefit. It's everything.
huge.
Everything is the same. It's like literally like what is that? 40 times cheaper. It's ridiculous.
The same in America too.
Yeah, a civil partnership offers all the same benefits, right? But yet we don't see many people getting a civil partnership. We see lots of people getting married, right? That's because we have this like social aspect around getting married.
Yeah.
Like marriage is more than just being with somebody, right? Marriage is more like making a declaration that this relationship is like committed, or this relationship is going to work, or something like that. It's not just about obviously all these benefits and everything like that. There is like a huge amount of social standing to do with getting a marriage. Like for example, like Big said, like he's very happy that he got married, right? Right. It's not about, and I understand again, it's about being with that person, but it's still seen as a declaration. You still have to make that, and it validates your relationship in that sense, which again, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing that you need your relationship validated, or you should be sort of expositionist in that sense.
or it's socially pressured.
Yeah.
You know, being like, when are you guys going to get married? You've been together for X amount of years. When are you going to get married? And it's like, well,
I'm trying to get in so quick.
It doesn't have to be like that.
So I guess I want to push back on a few things. One, the divorce rate thing. So that's like an often quoted statistic, but it's not actually quite right. The divorce rate is actually really hard to pin down. It's actually not a straightforward thing to do, for various reasons, right? Part of it is just like reporting. Like not all states report it, and then report it in different ways, right? The latest statistics from the CDC was that 14.9 people out of every 1,000 will get divorced, right? And that it's the lowest number since the 14.9 divorces per 1,000 marriages. Excuse me. It's the lowest number since 1970. But yeah, this is like not an easy thing to do. Like in that original number, that 50% seems to have been flawed in its origin. So and I think at some point we did hit a high, but like it was kind of a sensationalist thing. So we were like, oh, half of marriages are ending in divorce, and people just kind of ran with that. And anytime you have a statistic that's a round number, you should always be a little,
Yeah, no, thank you for fact checking that. Thank you, because I hear that number being thrown around all the time.
Everyone does, yeah. Everyone throws that number around, so I don't blame. I did the same thing. So yeah, until I heard at some point in the past that it's not quite the case. But yeah, it's actually to figure out the exact number is actually quite difficult. But still,
did you say these were marriages in America? Or did you just say across the world?
This is Marriages in America. I'll try to get you this. It's on my phone. I'll get you this site though. So you can see this article. This article like goes into detail as to why it's complicated. So it's from 2018. But anyway, I'll send it to you. But it's from America. So there's that. And I think it's interesting, how marriage has shifted in the minds of individuals, right? Like culturally, especially people are around our age. So like Spoon saying that he's going to be 26 soon, and people around my age don't have to think about this, right?
What age is that?
Oh, I mean, no, his age. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like my age. I did that very confusingly. I'm sorry. I switched perspectives there. But like people around his age aren't expected to be married. But like it kind of was that before, right? So again, we're pushing this off decades, right? My parents. Okay, so I'm talking about me. My parents were married. I think either around Spoon's age or slightly younger, right? And I think it's the case for many people of that generation. My parents are boomers, right? So I think there's many people of that generation that you would just be married within your early 20s. And so I think I'm trying to like figure out like what are the reasons why people are pushing this off, right? So there's multiple questions. One, there's pushing it off because you still want to, but you're saying that this comes later in life, and then there's not wanting to at all. So
thanks for stopping by, man.
Break it up.
I appreciate it.
Tackle it piece by piece. So let's talk about pushing it off.
I think like two big reasons I can think of straight away. One, financially. Like I said, marriages are fucking expensive, right? Just marriage license itself is expensive. Weddings are expensive. Honeymoons are expensive. Rings are expensive. It's just very expensive, right? And we see people are just fucking poor. It's, like I don't have as much wealth now as my parents did at my age, right? People are just poorer now. It's just generationally that's what's happening. Secondly, as well, we are exposed to so many more people nowadays. And we see our options as a lot broader. Knowing that you have to like settle for one person is not a thing anymore. You're not just dating the people in your village or the people in your local pub or whatever, right? I can literally speak to anyone in the fucking world, right? If you got access to the internet, bam, I could fall in love with you, right? It's possible. And sort of psychologically, you've got this sort of like fear of missing out, right? FOMO. If it's like 10 people and you get the one that you want, brilliant, right? You've got your options, you get the option you wanted. But now it's not really the case, is it? there's millions of people that you could meet, millions of people you could fall in love with, and people see this, especially like pushed in the media now. We've got like the sort of like the player kind of thing. You can do anything, you can go anywhere, you can be with anyone. And I think this pushes us away from sort of monogamy. And again, going back to like the social aspect of this, I think people are very disenfranchised nowadays, and they don't want to bring children into this world. They don't want to settle down. They don't want to sort of like get into a grind, if you will. And I think those are probably the three biggest reasons people are putting it off.
People want to live first. People want to have careers. They want to travel. Well, not right now, but
That's what I
they
mean,
did.
Like living is like that. What was considered living like 30 years ago is entirely different nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Like living 30 years ago was like, I don't know, maybe on holiday once a year. Living nowadays is like, oh yeah, I want to fucking like go traveling for 2 years, and I want to fucking like see this person and go to that person and work here and then do that because we're aware of all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm 26. By my age, my mom was married and had a fucking 3-year-old. Like, and that just sounds like an absolute nightmare to me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like her conception of what like a good life was probably consisted of that, right? That's what like she thought happiness was. Like
Definitely.
two interesting stats
Definitely.
are like so like divorce is like specifically like a Western thing, right? Because we're like more progressive in terms of like being against the patriarchy and stuff like that. So like getting divorced isn't seen as so like unbelievable. Whereas like in countries where they have like arranged marriages or like more sort of stereotypical gender roles and stuff like that, they're much more like to stay in these relationships because their conception of what being happy is being in a marriage, is having a marriage that even though it might make them unhappy, is what they consider to be like happy in context of their society. Which again doesn't really speak to marriage as an institution, but rather the metric we should be using here is individual happiness, and then furthermore how they are quantifying that happiness and what kind of society and what kind of happiness you want out of society.
Yeah. Also,
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that also there's an argument to be made
Heck
that
yeah,
possibly
use your points.
the reason why divorce rates have gone
Get
up
that highlighted
is
message.
also because women have more.
I love the highlighted messages.
Freedom, like women, autonomy. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry, my brain. Women can say, actually, this is really shit for me, and it's no longer just a man's decision.
Yeah. They're not so financially dependent. They can just go, I have a job, I have income, I'm gonna leave. Fuck this. I don't have to like sit here and take care of your kids.
Yeah. So far,
like
listening to this discussion,
like
I'm assuming I'm the youngest here. I tend to be like one of the younger people on Prime's panels.
What's it called? Prop bets for
I feel like I have like
old.
I don't know. I feel like everyone on this panel radiates millennial energy to me. Okay.
Are you a Zoomer?
Yeah,
actually, I'm technically a Zoomer. Okay, I'm post 95. Technically a Zoomer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're a Zoomer then. You're part of the club. But yeah, I feel like again, I'm not like a trad this, trad that, but like I feel like I have sort of the most the most old school kind of perspective on this out of everyone here. Like for me in my life, what I want to do is marry the person I dated in high school, live our lives in in our 20s, and then my mom had me when she was 30. I think that's a comfortable age to have a kid. I wouldn't mind having a kid at that point in time. Now, this is just what I want. This isn't like a plan or anything. There's no way I can guarantee all this stuff happening. But I mean, I think it's cool though that
but I don't know. Everybody else is younger, but T-Jump, I don't know him.
Has like a different perspective and understands what they want to see. And
I'm like ancient for the internet,
exactly
man.
The situation,
you have to remember that.
Because we should be striving for. Once again, what makes
36
us the most happy.
is like fucking like boomer.
Well, this is why I say like it's
important. Big, so are you trying to say something? If you are, you're muted.
I think he's just talking to a stream.
Oh, yeah, I think he's talking to a stream. I got confused by that too. I was hoping I wasn't interrupting.
Sorry.
Okay, no, that's my fault. Spoon.
So this is why I say like it's important that we understand how we measure happiness in context. right? And this actually comes to like an interesting thought experiment called the original position, right? So obviously you can't conceptualize of happiness for everyone. There's no fitting definition of happiness for everyone, right? Happiness is very dependent on the individual, right? And obviously, since happiness is dependent on the individual, you shouldn't really be sculpting society in any specific way.
Absolutely.
I do think that there's.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say. I when it comes to like policy, this for me, if I was like doing policy, like I mentioned earlier, I want to see wages rise in general. That might result in something like marriages being more stable or going up or whatever, just because there would be less stress and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I guess that would just be a way to see where we are when it comes to those other policies, and not really the end goal is to strengthen marriage or anything like that. But I don't know. Since we were talking about like society and stuff, I just wanted to bring that up.
I'd actually disagree with Spoon there a little bit. So I think that if we can find
I'm not going to get
in society that
too
lead
hippity hoppity with this.
more successful groups of people who are like less in poverty, less crime, those kinds of things, if those activities are demonstrably better,
there's some like other like legal stuff, I'm
obviously not
sure,
require
like
them, but to incentivize them to try and get people,
you know, like
to do them
property
more
rights
often,
and
to teach
stuff,
people about
death
them.
rights.
Like
There's
if there is something that demonstrably
a bunch
works,
of
then we
things.
should definitely promote that in society.
Do you think we should give like more? But I think that a lot of the time we were advocating for even more.
Well, I mean, if you're going to make the category so broad,
stable. Do you think that
of course it'll fit into
there are
that.
enough like incentives?
Like you could literally
for
say
marriage, or do
everything
you think
under
that
benefits
they
is
should
a
be given
benefit,
more
right?
by,
I
like,
mean,
the government and stuff.
I have no idea about the more. I just think that we should encourage it and teach people about it. So I think instead of incentives,
Do
more
you not
about
think it's being
education.
pushed enough?
I have no idea. I don't know what the correct amount is.
If I could hop in there real quick, a thing that can be done. This isn't really a marriage thing, but just like to make relationships and families more stable. Something like child tax credits are a really good idea in my opinion. So like that's coming with like the stimulus. I really fuck with that, because it makes more stable and happy lives. So yeah, that's what I gotta say there.
That was a response to Spoon, so let Spoon go, and then we'll go to Biggs.
Yeah, so my issue with this is not that we shouldn't be encouraging it. It's that whenever we encourage something, like especially in this binary state, married or don't get married, you're discouraging something else, right? So by encouraging people to get married, by encouraging what we consider to be a positive behavior, you're discouraging the other thing in branding.
Yeah, no, we're 850.
Not necessarily a negative behavior, but like an undesirable behavior, a behavior that produces like not good outcomes, right, or worse outcomes overall. And we do this, and we fall into the pitfalls of like where marriage like trips up, right? You get like people into a marriage and they feel as if they're trapped in that marriage and they should stay in that marriage because it's the socially acceptable thing to do. It's the best for society, and then they're unhappy, and they get all these bad outcomes for society. You get like domestic abuse, and you get unfulfilled people raising unfulfilled children.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you said there, Spoon. But one thing I think I would rather see, especially with people pushing back, like we said, with the, at what age they get married and move on with those, like that step in life. But I would be more satisfied if there was more things for like benefits like cohabitation. I think not only does it help with, like I said earlier, about like the costs and the income, but also I think it also helps the environment, because if we have more people like living together, there might be less need for like cars. They can live together, share cars. There's less need to like have like even more housing and stuff like that. Like I know there's some other like pitfalls to that as well. Like I'm not a huge fan of like big cities and like tight, dense populations, but I think that like cohabitating with like one person that you're really comfortable with, I think definitely benefits society a lot. But one of the things I kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up too is I think that a lot of people think that like marriage necessitates this like strong family unit, but I think it's like we can still have that strong cohesive family unit without necessarily having marriage, because like you said, I think Spoon was saying about the declaration thing, like we can declare something, but like if we just do it, like there's no need to declare it, you know what I mean? And I think we can still have these family units, and I know that's one of the big things that like the right pushes against is that they think that if we get rid of marriage, like everything's going to fall apart. You know, people are going to be like, you know, just doing, you know, naughty things with everybody, all the neighbor, you know, it's going to be like this like hedonism like type situation. But I think that's like just completely false, because like you guys mentioned earlier, you know, people have the social need to bond with another. Now, some people, you know, may find that they may want to bond with more than, you know, one person, and that, you know, as long as they're being safe and everybody's being respectful, that's fine and it's consensual. But I just think that like, if we can just incentivize this like cohabitation, these like things that we can improve not only the people's like individual lives, but we can also improve just like the environment and just like things like that as well.
I was actually thinking about this earlier, right? And it seems that actually in basically all cases, except for raising a child, which actually is encompassed in this in a different way, polyamory, or like being in like open relationships, is actually better. Sorry, I don't know if my mic keeps jumping. It's actually better. Like, for example, living in like a house with like one other person is good, right? You know, you split the bills with them, and you know, you may share a car or whatever. But actually doing it with like 5 people, that's even better. You know, splitting the bills 5 ways, right? You got 4 other people to support you. You got 4 other people to. Like,
I think that runs into other issues though, like that. Then you get a lot more, like
you get stuff with like jealousy and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But, again, this is really like speculating on what human nature is, and like how much of this is nature and how much of this is nurture. Are we jealous naturally? Is it like a natural thing?
I would say probably yes, but I mean, I'm not a professional on that.
As a result of like us enforcing monogamy. I mean, that's what I mean. Is it as a result of us enforcing monogamy? Because I think all of us have agreed here that there has been a precedent that we do enforce people just to get together and stay together, and like that should be your wife, and your wife should not cheat on you, and your husband should not cheat on you, and they shouldn't be with anyone else. So there's definitely a large precedent there to say that jealousy is something that we teach. It's not necessarily inherent. And again, the flip side of this is there are people who are polyamorous. There are people in open relationships and they're not jealous. So it's.
We also see this in the animal kingdom though as well. Just I mean, we see jealousy even when they aren't monogamous.
So let's go to Fawn, then Nathan.
First of all, I just want to say I believe that polyamorous, like people being polyamorous, that's like
the question to me is what should the state aspect really be?
Like a sexuality kind of, and that not everyone can do that. But
I really think it just depends on like what you want to do and like what the policies are. I mean, I think it would be perfectly reasonable to have a completely different system, and as long as it works well. I mean, I don't know what that system might be, but just something different, you know, like
in knowing how their relationship works, like.
I think we just see from everything that happens with, you know,
of like what
whether
is
it's divorce
or
or
not acceptable,
infidelity or
and
you know,
I think
whatever it
it's
is.
a lot about open
There's so many
communication.
pitfalls that
jealousy seeps in.
It just makes it seem like we'd be better off people waiting until they knew for sure and not getting into these marriages without really thinking it through.
How they're involved with other people. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's just what I've observed from my friends who are in polyamorous relationships. And I just want to say, if marriage is the norm, like a monogamous marriage, heterosexual marriage is the norm. That is already what is being promoted, what is being taught to people in social aspects of society all over the world. That is totally the norm. And I think that it is important, like while that is a good thing and that can obviously be beneficial, I think that it's also important to destigmatize other forms of relationships, whether it is a bunch of people living together in one place, whether they're romantically involved or not. Like
to be fair, that kind of marriage has been the norm for like all of humanity.
If you're living with 5 people because it's just easier on your bills, that is not seen as like a permanent solution. It's like
back in history, there was all the different types of marriage, like you said.
You grow up, then eventually you all go off and live in your little family, family unit, you know, like
oh man, that's my excuse now.
But what if it is?
I got married at 23. My brain wasn't fully developed.
The end goal.
I guess that null and voids it, right?
Keep on making
just joking, okay? Make it a joke
for yourselves financially.
I know you're listening,
and maybe
honey.
It's more enjoyable to have a more social kind of lifestyle.
It's seen as like immature though, isn't it? If you do that, if
Yeah,
you're like,
it
yeah,
is.
I'm just gonna live with like my 5 mates. We're just gonna like share a house forever. As seen
Yeah.
as like immature. That seems as like, you know,
As
not
like
grown up or like
student
yeah.
living. It's like, no, but what if we just keep on
Yeah.
doing it? I
But-
think more and more people,
Nice try.
yeah, more and more people are doing that for longer. But again, it's still not seen as the end goal.
Hey,
for, like,
thank you so
how
much for the
people should live.
follow.
And I think that is
Cerenthesis or Cerenthis?
important,
I don't know how
to
to pronounce that. I'm
to
terrible
make
at
alternatives
pronouncing
living
names. Thank you so much for the
situations
follow. I appreciate it.
not
You're
frowned
amazing.
upon, and not make people feel pressured to find the one person, because
yeah, and
we see it
this
all
is
the
what I was
time.
saying. This is
Yeah,
what I
we
say
see.
about like when you encourage marriage, right? Oh, fucking like it. That's what I said. Like when you encourage marriage, you discourage this other
Yeah.
thing, right? It's like I said, it's seen as immature or whatever.
I call you Trevor,
like,
eh?
why
Thank
is
you,
this not
Trevor.
viable? Like,
Yeah.
Very
actually, I think
much.
it'd be great. I think I'd probably like really like living with all my friends and like, you know, like even like my girlfriend as well. Like why not, right?
Yeah, I feel like I
Yeah.
haven't really had
choose to
much
be
of a
friends with them,
mindset
like,
change since I
Why
was
not
like a
live with
teenager,
you?
basically.
Yeah, why don't live with you and your girlfriend and your best friend and their
Yeah.
partner as well, and like
You just have
Yeah.
different
I don't know,
responsibilities and
it's-
priorities, really.
I mean,
I'll be
you might wanna,
honest,
like,
I don't
you
wanna
might want
live-
some space.
Yeah, I don't want to live with my friends because I don't want to shit in the same toilet that they do. But
Well, that sounds like you just need better friends. Better dietary.
Yeah,
clean friends. How about that?
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
have your own en-suites. Come on, like that's
I
the thing. You could afford that.
Well, I'd
literally,
like
Just
to,
a bunch of friends.
true.
with
I'd like to disagree with
compatible.
Spoon again, if possible. So he said that if you promote one thing, you're like denouncing another thing, and that's just not true. Like you can promote one thing while not promoting something else, but that's not a denouncement. Like for example, there are benefits for single motherhoods and for married couples. The fact that you give money to one doesn't mean you can't give money to another or give benefits to another. So just promoting one doesn't necessarily denounce another, even though some people in society will see it that way. So I don't see this connection that I've heard from a few people that I've talked to, that they see that promoting one inherently is denouncing the other. I don't think that follows at all.
But it is socially. Like it might not be legally or anything. Like obviously people who have civil unions, that is obviously gives the same benefits. But on a societal level,
Yeah,
we
I
still
always
put
knew I
marriage
wanted a
on this
family.
pedestal.
That was one
Yeah,
thing I did
so
know.
it's like
Was
it's a
that
binary.
because of the benefits, or is that
So-
just because of something socially completely separate?
It's a little bit of both, right? So like this is a binary state, right? You're either into marriage or you're not into marriage, right? And like we as a society think you should be into marriage.
I'm
right? That's
sorry, I
what we
wasn't
think.
laughing at you. I was
So it's not
laughing at something
necessarily
else. My bad.
I know my internet keeps cutting out anyway. So it's not necessarily that like not being into marriage is a bad thing, right? But like clearly it's not the preferable alternative, right? If you've got two choices, one isn't necessarily the bad choice and one isn't necessarily the good choice. It's just the preferable alternative.
Because when I was younger, I had younger
Well, I still don't
siblings.
see the
They were like a
connection.
lot
the
younger than
government
me.
promotes you should get a
And
Roth
just
IRA
like
or a
seeing how they
401k.
developed at an age when like
Some
I
people
wasn't
don't,
like
and it's not,
sharing that
socially
experience with them.
stigmatized. It
I
seems
was
all
on
the
the
social
outside as like
stigmatization comes from more like a
like
religious
semi-partial
Doesn't have anything to
caregiver,
do
like
with,
babysitting and cooking and cleaning for them. Like I always knew that I wanted to have children.
something that could benefit
And
people. So I
obviously,
don't
if I
I'm
wanted to
not
have children, I
saying
had
that
to
it
have
shouldn't
a
be
wife, or
promoted.
you
I'm
know,
just saying
and I
that
think that's the best way.
I don't know how to fix it,
So-
but it would be good if other things were also promoted alongside. Like, I just saw
Yep,
in chat is
exactly.
that, you know, parents talk to their children about getting married someday and they don't talk to them about having a civil union or other kinds of relationships. And obviously that's a social thing. That's not anything to do with the government. I don't necessarily think the government should try and get involved in that or whatever, but that it is like a social issue.
Well, why is that a
You-
problem? Like, shouldn't
you-
your parents teach your
we
kids
share
the
one
most
parent,
successful method?
but we
Like,
don't
this is
share
the
the
one
same
that has
two
all the
parents.
papers supporting
My
it.
parents got
I've seen
divorced when I
papers
was like 2.
supporting, polyamorous
So-
relationships as decreasing crime or decreasing poverty or increasing the health of children. So doesn't it make sense for parents to say, well, here's the one that has all the data. We should teach our kids this one.
Yeah, but it's more like that those kind of relationships haven't been around long enough, I think, to have any kind of hard data on them. Do you know what I mean?
Actually, there is.
Not really.
I think I want to start
there
doing
is
my
already,
own
because,
panel
like,
soon, so I can be
it
in
takes
control
a
of like who we hear
village kind
from.
of aspect, right?
Because I
Like,
kind
so
of feel the
that,
same
like,
way.
We're actually like raising communally and like communal sort of like living was just like that was just how it was for like fucking ages, right? Like back like in the primordial era up until like the 1700s. Like you'd just be raised communally, and everybody would raise communally. There were still like monogamous relationships there, but like communal raising, like communal living, were just incredibly common.
That also was a time when you were so much more reliant in general for everything on your neighbors too.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, right? So like this is the point, right? So we're like sort of breaking down these barriers, right? Obviously, we used to live in like fucking like monkey tribes, right? And it was necessary to live in a monkey tribe because you couldn't survive on your own, right? And now it was necessary to live in like a fucking little commune, right? Because you need these, you rely on your
I'll try
to survive. And now it's necessary to
I
have
like
a
to say so much.
You need your partner to like survive, and we'll break that down, right? As these sort of barriers get lowered, and as like being independent becomes more viable, you don't, it's not necessitated so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. I would go back to what Nathan said earlier. Like if we could just solve all income problems and one person could support their whole family on their own, then this wouldn't be an issue. But I think that in today's society, we are at the point where having two people in a family is still beneficial or necessary enough to be sufficiently beneficial, and so we should promote it. But obviously, once we get to the point where we have solved like Star Trek levels of income, where no one even gets paid, you just get what you need, then yeah, it's going to be completely pointless to have marriage.
Well, I don't know, right? Because like I think this presents a dichotomy of like you either promote that people just be together because that's good for them, or you promote that we fix the issue that is.
We're not arguing against
and that way the people who
families
don't
per se. I'm just saying that you can have families without having marriage necessarily. I don't think that the institution of marriage should really be even anything that the government's involved in.
Proven to work and has
I think marriage should strictly be a union within the church, personally, and I think that something else should be involved in the government.
Of our society, right? So surely we should maximize our potential to do things by expanding society.
Gabby, what are you doing?
Actually, this works in current society, so let's promote that, right?
Gabby, you need to go upstairs, baby.
Not be let's promote monogamy and marriage. Our viewpoint should be let's promote.
Come here, babe.
Being happy via whatever that means, not necessarily marriage, right? Even though that might work currently.
I'm not sure. I don't think I would agree there. So I'd say that if we have something in the past that we know works, like science, that's how science works, and then you come up with a new model that hasn't been tested yet. I mean, obviously we want to test the model, but we wouldn't promote the model before it's been tested. We would promote the thing that's been tested and shown to work in the past.
What is your idea of promoting though? Like, do you mean being pushed by like the government, or
I'm not proposing a model though. I'm proposing like an entire paradigm, right? So I'm not saying like, this works within the current framework of society. I'm saying change the entire framework of society, right? So I'm not proposing like a simple shift in the way we think about things. I'm proposing like an entire shift away from how we conceive of things in general.
And you think that's safer than promoting something we know that works and keeps people alive for?
I don't know. I'm not really concerned about it being like safer. I'm concerned about like what's best for humanity, right? Obviously, we don't have to do this by like going around and like cutting wedding rings off people's fingers.
But, yeah, like you can promote.
So by safer, what I mean is that there's certain policies that we know promote things like lower crime, lower poverty, better outcomes for kids. And if you want to try something that we don't know will have as good of an outcome as this other thing, then it's the risk is that you have a lower outcome. If having these relationships that we haven't tested, like polyamorous relationships, if it happens to be the case that those are not as good at promoting lower poverty rates, better child welfare, lower crime, then that's a consequence that will happen to society if we do promote those. So we should wait until we actually have data to say that, yes, these are as good or better than the monogamous relationships.
So you just think we should just not try new things?
We should try it, but we shouldn't promote it before it's been tested.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying promote it, right? I'm saying don't promote marriage.
Yeah. Right? Okay. So why? I think he's trying to draw a distinction here. Saying that don't promote this thing because it's he believes it inherently stigmatizes the other thing, right? That in people's minds, marriage takes primacy. And if I'm getting this wrong, please correct me. But that within our culture, marriage takes primacy because it has this advantage, right? It has these centuries of cultural importance, right? and that anything else that's like diverging from that will inherently be stigmatized, even if your parents never mention the words like polyamory to you, right? It's that like, well, this isn't how what I understand to be normal, right? What I've always been told, right? But it's not like, for instance, with Fawn talking about how, when she was a child, she used to dream of getting married, right? But that marriage included the one guy, right? And not anything else. Now, our parents, I don't know anything about parents, but they may have never said the words, right? Either polyamory or even gay marriage, right? They never talked about that. But the very fact that those were her expectations, like, is enough. What do you think about that, TJ?
I'm not sure what you mean here by stigmatized. So, like, if I said to my kids, you should get a job, you should not become a YouTuber as your profession because it's a very like stable career. Like, obviously, this is a kind of stigmatization because I'm saying like this is a less reliable way to make an income so you can feed yourself. So you
I just think it's kind of like an outdated
if you
notion
want
in
a
general,
YouTuber.
basically.
So,
Like,
obviously, if there is a method that we know for a fact works
if
better,
we
or is
can
more
still
proven to
have
work
the
better
same
than the other methods, we should absolutely
effect
promote
that we
because
have
it's like,
now, because
should you get a
obviously
job or should you just
there's
sell all your
ways
stuff
to
and buy
get out
lottery
of
tickets?
marriage,
Well,
so like it doesn't
job is
really
the better bet here.
mean that
And so the
much as
same thing
far
would
as like,
apply
yeah, there's
to
some other
marriage or any
walls
kind
and
of
barriers in the
institution
way, but
society.
like
If we have a lot of
I think
evidence
you can
that
still
this
have
one
these
method
things
works
without
really, really well, and we don't
having
have a
to
lot
be
of evidence
this
for
like
other methods, then the one method
specific
that works really,
ideal
really well
of
is the
just
thing we should
marriage.
promote because it's the most successful thing we know of currently.
So, but Fawn and Spoon, Stinky Debate Man. I keep calling him Spoon because that's his other name. But what they're talking about though is, and I believe they said it multiple times, is not promoting the one, right? So,
Yeah.
like,
I still think you still have like child support and all that.
level of acceptance if like a society says, well, there are many different types of family arrangements, right? Here's a list. You choose.
And I think some of that
feels
stuff
right
would
to
also
you,
fall
right?
under like civil union type situations as well.
If I'm getting that wrong, correct me. Spoon. What do you
Yeah, that's
think?
how I understood what they were saying too. But
Okay.
but if we're saying that we shouldn't tell people the most successful method, that's like saying let's not tell people to get a job. Let's just promote all of them equally.
So I think you're kind of like stuck within a set framework of your thinking, right? So like society has a problem, and as it creates crime and poverty and all these things, right? So we have like a solution to this, which is get married, right? Because it reduces these things. People tend to be happier when they're with a partner, right?
Sure. He froze.
Did I lose connection?
Yeah, so sorry. No, I'm so sorry. It's just my fucking internet's patchy.
It's okay.
He said yes. Go ahead.
So your solution to this issue is to promote this thing that like mitigates the issue, right? So my solution is, instead of promoting this thing that mitigates the issue,
yeah, definitely. I could definitely. I mean, divorce definitely has
a society in which these
its benefits for people that need to have
happen,
divorce.
The downsides of the prescription of getting married don't manifest.
Yeah, that's a nice ideal. I can definitely understand the goal, but the problem is that if we try to implement the solution you're suggesting, will that approach be as successful as my approach or not? Now, we have lots and lots of data that says my approach is successful. We have no data that says your approach is successful. So yours is inherently more risky. And so as a rational human being, I should go with the one that has all the evidence behind it. And obviously, I'm happy to test your method in isolated cases, but
not the rational human being. No.
Rational human being follows the evidence. That's what it means.
Well, Fawn, go ahead, and then Nathan, then Biggs.
Sorry, sorry, I don't mean to be laughing at you. I just okay. My idea, my way of coming at this is from an idea of like social stigma that
I love you,
seems to be on for like a different forms of relationships that aren't marriage, even if that's like a monogamous pairing, going like that stay together forever but they're not married, because while you like might not mean to stigmatize things. Even with your example of like saying, hey kids, don't become a YouTuber, that because it might not work out and you should probably get a real job. If your kid then really wants to become a YouTuber and then goes, hey, I've actually become a YouTuber, I'm so sorry, then you've kind of automatically stigmatized that, and it can just make people feel bad. I've kind of forgotten where I'm going with this. I'm so sorry. My brain is running on caffeine and absolutely nothing else. But do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense?
I get it.
Thank you, Nathan.
Nathan
You've-
Go then Biggs.
You've created a stigma without possibly meaning to.
Yeah. So I guess I definitely understand the point that Fawn just made, like saying like, oh, don't become a YouTuber, it's not a good job, or you could fail, go get a regular job. I mean, it's always good advice to tell someone to get a regular job, but there is that sort of creation of like,
exactly. I
don't
mean, I
become a
do agree.
YouTuber. There's
Like
the
it does give some
stigmatization
kind of
there,
barriers.
or a stigmatization there. So I get the point that was being made, but I wanted to ask or explore this question that was proposed earlier: the inherent like naturalness of monogamy, right? So obviously there are polyamorous people, right? But like, and obviously society enforces monogamy. But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about like my take on this. So I feel like monogamy is like Fawn mentioned earlier, like polyamory could be looked at like something like how sexualities are. So there's like straight people, gay people, etc. And you know, the LGBT
Yeah, old dads with
community
YouTube channels. Hell
is
yeah.
the minority of people.
I have a YouTube channel
but
too,
they
but I don't get
exist,
any
right?
views because I just
Obviously,
use it as
polyamorous people exist.
an
But I
archiving
think
site,
people are
basically.
generally speaking more leaning towards being monogamous, not just because society tells them to, but for example, when you like somebody, right? Like those natural emotions of liking somebody, and then you see them getting along with somebody else or whatever, and you feel that jealousy. I don't think someone would feel that jealousy just because society told them to. You know what I'm saying? I think that's very natural of us. I don't think that's like some weird like territorial stuff, but I think it's just, you know,
Thanks, Goobs.
we like somebody and for whatever reason we want to just be with them and them only. Now that's not for everybody, but I'm very curious. Do you guys think that monogamy is more natural for everybody? Not everybody, but for the majority?
So we'll go to Biggs first and then Spoon. But like I know exactly what you're talking about, Nathan.
I do
right?
think so. Yeah.
These are the feelings that I have when Spoon is on any other Twitch panel. And he's supposed to be with me and only me. And it's a problem otherwise, right? But I keep that to myself. All right.
I would
Biggs.
never cheat on you, Prime.
Thank you. See, there you go. Loyalty. You should learn that, Spoon.
So
I'm a Twitch hoe, okay?
I definitely agree with Nathan on this one, and as well as Fauna on what she was saying. But I'll discuss what Nathan was saying first. I think that from a like relationship standpoint, I don't know how many of you have been in like long-term relationships, but they take a lot of work and they take a lot of understanding. They take a lot of effort. And I think that it makes it a lot more difficult when you add more people to the equation. Again, some people are able to do it, but I think overall, I think as social beings, we have a finite amount that we can give. And I think when we have these relationships, we want to give that whole amount to one other person. Again, not everybody, but I would say in general, that's my feeling on that. But one thing I think that we haven't really talked about here is I don't really see, like I know like some of the studies that T-Jump had brought up about like marriage being like statistically better overall for society. I think that is partially true, but I also think it's more just like the strong family unit. But I don't necessarily think you need to have marriage to have that. I think what you really need in those situations is just love, understanding, caring, and things like that. But what I wanted to ask T-Jump, and then maybe you can get this later, but do you see anything that like is actually like that marriage actually does that prevents like bad situations from happening. Because like to me, you can be married and still do a lot of messed up stuff, right? Like, is it really that much of a barrier that really makes that much of a difference on whether or not like things are actually better or not? I see where some cases it might be, maybe like people don't want to leave for like the financial reasons, like having to pay like child support and alimony and like things like that. But like, I think for the most part, it's really not that big of a hurdle, and I don't really think we focus so much on this stuff. And I think if we took a step back and had people more focused on the love and the caring, the relationship itself, and not just these like declarations of whatever, I think we'd be better off overall.
I totally disagree. I think that all of the stats show that for sure, marriage, for whatever reason, the fact that there is some social contract that's a part of it, does have better outcomes. Just if we're looking at the data, I mean, I imagine there's equally as much love between an unmarried couple and a married couple, but the married couple seems to do better, and their children seem to do better, and they seem to have less crime and less poverty, like everywhere in the world. Like marriage is probably the best predictor of the lower poverty levels of any state, more than race, education, anything. So it seems like marriage as a social contract kind of a theory does in fact have a impact of making better outcomes for whatever reason, because it just impacts us in that way. I did want to comment on the monogamy thing. Like humans have only been monogamous for about 1,000 years. We are mostly non-monogamous as a species.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna go
quickly. Oh,
so
sorry.
hold on. Let's go to Spoon, Nathan, and then Fawn. But okay, well, let's do that first, Spoon.
So I was gonna say about Nathan, right? You got to be very careful when you say like something is natural, right? I don't really think it's within our purview to speculate on the truth of human nature, because well, I hate to break it to you, but we live in a society, and we always have lived in a society.
No,
Like we've literally
Excuse me?
always lived in a society.
not
Humanity
a
has not
society.
humanity has not existed out of a society. I'm afraid we do live in a society. So we don't know if this is like natural or it's as a result of like living in a society. So you got to be very careful when you do that, right? And so again, I'm not sold on this idea that jealousy is like innately natural or it's like innate to society or whatever. I don't really care, right? I don't think it's important. The point is, it's not really a good thing at the end of the day. It doesn't really promote like good outcomes, jealousy. So it should probably just do away with it, regardless of if it's natural or taught. There's only one of these things that we can actually impact, and that's the social aspect of it, right? If it is natural, so be it. We'll have to get over that some other way. And if it's as a result of society, we can deal with that through societal means. And secondly, I just wanted to jump back to what Fawn said earlier, right? So this idea of like polyamory, right? This doesn't have to be like specifically romantic, right? I love my friends, and like I said, I'd be happy to live with my friends.
Based.
So you can have these like sort of
Not
like
access to
I guess,
porn,
like,
gambling,
commune
alcoholism,
kind of
drug use,
setups.
bad
It doesn't
upbringings, lack of
necessarily have to
education,
be
etc.
romantic.
The woke lesbians,
And there's
yes,
not
you
really
got it on
any-
the head,
any
Joss, some
downside to
sauce.
this, like I said earlier.
The woke
Actually, in
lesbians
pretty
must
much
be to
every
blame.
aspect,
That's so funny.
polyamory and like sort of communal raising and stuff like that is actually better, right? It's better financially, it's better socially, it's better for child rearing, it's better for like every benefit that you could possibly get out of marriage. Like it's a much more preferable alternative. Like, yeah.
So I actually want to push back on this a little bit, right? I'm just thanking someone for a gift sub. Thank you for the gift sub, Chloe. Thanks so much. Okay, I wanted to push back a little bit on this. On I guess maybe where T Jump was trying to go from this, and if I'm ever butchering your point, T Jump, then let me know. But like polygamy. Sorry, no. Oh, we'll get to that later. Polyamory. Polyamory. No. Like it seems to me has more points of failure, right? Like it is difficult. As Biggs will tell you, right, as a married person, is it difficult to have a marriage between two individuals, right? So if
I love the point of failure argument. So based
relationship with 3, 4, 5 individuals, well, that's more
Definitely,
ways that
probably.
it can all blow up.
Yeah.
And we've seen and maybe been in relationships that have melted down. It's not a pretty thing, right? So like in the context of child rearing, right? Would it be better if we had like more opportunities for people to fall apart and fall apart disastrously, would it be, and not even just that, right? Like people drift, right? So people drift. Like if you're seeing that it's the family unit, the stable family unit, that is the most valuable thing, well then anything that introduces less stability, right? Being people again just drifting apart, like that would be, I mean, that would be problematic, right? I mean, that would be less desirable, right, Spoon?
Yeah, I guess, but like under my sort of like communal solution, you might drift away from one person. It doesn't matter because you got like 4 other people there to like talk to and like be with and like be friends with. Like I don't know how your like friendship dynamics are, but like generally speaking, it seems to me that like people are like really close with like one person, and then like through generally geographic factors, like they like drift apart from them a bit, and they're like really friends with another person, and like they're not. It's not like they're not friends with the person who they were closer with before, but like they're just just not as close, right? And I feel like it would work like that. The dynamic, if anything, would still be better because if in a monogamous relationship you drift away from one person, and that's it, you're like fucked basically, right? You get like you have to rely on somebody else who you haven't been as close with.
So I'm not 100% familiar with like polyamory and stuff like that, but are we like talking about like multiple like different genders, or are we talking about like one of one gender and like multiple of the other gender, like what type of like polyamory relationships are just all kinds, just everything?
Yeah,
whatever works. Yeah, like whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious, like
no, yeah. Just that you're opening up your relationship to love more than one person. You can have a primary that you're with, right? So like yeah, and then outside of that, there's many different formulations of this. But then outside of that, you each, or maybe just one of you, goes out and has these other connections, right? They don't necessarily have to be sexual. They can be just like romantic or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think it's actually a worthwhile question because not everyone might know what we're talking about. So fair enough. Or you could have more than one like major relationships, and then the other ones are minors. So it's all kinds of ways that can
and I
happen.
think this really goes to what you were saying earlier, Prime, about like the points of failure. I really like that argument a lot because I really do agree with that, especially when you're getting into like you guys mentioned, because I'm like I said, I'm just like kind of like new to understanding this whole concept. But when you add especially all that additional complexity to those relationships, I think that definitely can put a lot of strain and, like you said, points of failure. So that's why, and I don't necessarily think it's necessarily bad or anything like that, but I'm just saying like the chances of things going wrong and more people being affected by that could be a little bit more than the just one person, I guess.
I think that's true. I think there's like with any sort of like complex mechanism, there are obviously like more points at which it can fail, right? Like a car is much more likely to have an issue than a spanner, right? However, you've also got more supporting systems. So for example, if a spanner breaks, that spanner is broken. However, you can drive a car with a fucked engine for fucking ages, right? There is more supporting structure around it. So although there is more chance of it breaking, there is also more around it to support it. So it's more likely to keep functioning.
Let's go to Nathan, then Fawn.
Yeah, so I can't speak for how everybody would handle a polyamorous relationship, but I could not. Like, I'm just like imagining the scenarios. Like, let's say like we're sleeping or whatever. I'm just like hugging one of them, and then the other one touches me. I'm like, fuck off, you know. But
and that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. But I mean, look, I like freedom. I value freedom. So if someone wants to do that, I think they should. You know what? If those people want marriage licenses, give them marriage licenses. Since we're talking about marriage. But yeah, I did want to respond to one of the points that T Jump made because I'm curious about this as well. He was saying that marriage is a good indicator of like success in a variety of ways. A lot of poverty, crime, etc. But I'm curious, is marriage the indicator, like the cause of such good results, or is it more the good results and marriage is one of the good results? So, for example, is marriage the one reducing poverty and reducing crime, or is the fact that someone's in better conditions where they don't have to turn to crime, and when they're not in poverty, that they can then focus on the relationship to put a bit more resources there and have a better, more stable relationship as a result of their better position. So
I think
I
they
mean,
I
I
think they
don't.
facilitate each other, right? Like if you're in
Yeah,
a stable relationship, you're less likely to commit crime, and also you're less like, and also if you're in a less likely to commit crime if you've got somebody like that relies on you, right? Like they feed into each other. But again, this is only magnified by my polyamorous communes argument, right? You got more people relying on you, got more people supporting you, so it reduces the chances even more, right? And again, it's not like marriage itself or having like a single person that like does this for you. It's like the feelings there. It's like the mutual understanding and the connection you share. And this is only amplified like the more people you have relying on you, or the more people you have to rely on. Conversely,
Teach
Yeah,
us.
like-
So,
and we're. Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
So to respond to the two things, first, there are a number of studies on polyamorous relationships. They don't have as many positive benefits as monogamous relationships. So the stats just don't agree with what you say sounds nice, but I don't see any actual data to support what you're saying. And then Nathan asked, what's the cause? Is marriage the cause? And in science, you can't prove cause. It's always going to be correlation, and the best way to assess what the most likely cause is to say, well, what is the most common factor in all of the most successful groups? So like there's usually, they share hundreds of different variables, and you would say, well, what is the one that's the most common? What is the highest indicator, or the highest predictor of this thing? And marriage is the highest predictor. So of all the different variables that it could be, this is the one that's the most likely to be the cause.
Fair.
Yeah, but I would also say if these couples, these married couples had, if you talked to them and said, if you were educated in alternative, no, not even that. If it's like, if you knew that this relationship was going to work, and you were like 100% committed, but if you went, you don't have to get married, you could just have a civil union and get all these benefits, and you wouldn't have to spend all that money on those sort of things, would you do that? And I think a lot of people would say, yeah, that'd be great, because it would have more money for the kids. And so I don't necessarily think that it's the crux of it is marriage.
yeah.
I think that the crux of it is a commitment and a
Yeah.
family bond.
Just like the alternative I'm proposing capitalizes on the sources of the benefits in a traditional marriage, right? Like, so like it's better to have a marriage financially because you've got two people contributing to the income of the household, right? Again, this goes up, like logically, this goes up because you've got more people contributing in like a commune kind of style thing, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
it doesn't
makes
even need
perfect
to,
sense.
like, people can be in monogamous relationships in that situation. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel
more
like,
talking about like the material, like living
yeah,
conditions of these people, not like the actual like specific relationship. Because like
not
the
like
marriage is,
everyone fucking each other.
yeah, like the
Yeah,
And I-
I'm pro
marriage is like
civil
there
unions.
specifically for like,
Just to clarify, in most of the studies, civil unions are essentially the same as marriage. So they're functionally the same thing in the study. So yeah, I'm totally fine with
Okay,
civil
good.
unions.
Yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah.
I'm glad that that counted. I mean, like, I'm glad that that counts towards that study, because I think that makes a lot of sense.
I'm very curious, like, and again, I'm not like trying to make any pointed statements or anything like that. And I don't know if we have like we probably won't be able to have this information right in front of us, but I'm very curious, what is the sort of like starting wealth for these people? Not to focus on class or anything when we're talking about
True.
like marriage, but like let's say like you have two individuals that are, children of middle class parents, well off middle class parents, and they get together because they're just in the same circles. Maybe they go to the same school, and then they could be their high school sweetheart story, and they just had a better start, and then they got more money
I
to
think you're
get gifts and
actually,
stuff.
I think
Yeah.
conversely, you're actually more likely to get married the poorer you are, because like when you're poor, you need to capitalize on these benefits a bit more. So like it's not that like richer people
I
tend
dis-
to get married more.
But
It's
can you
poor people tend to
afford?
get
I
married
would
more.
Do you think?
I would disagree with that because I'm sorry. I'll try to be quick. I would disagree with that because I think, one of the big reasons for like divorce and stuff is stress, like I said earlier, and finance is a usual cause of stress. So a majority of this country are not in the best position. And that's why I think if there is a high rate of divorce, which I'm not sure, because as Prime explained, the 50% number is probably not accurate. Um, it doesn't surprise me when so many people are struggling. So I think if you have two poor people, they probably have to focus their attention on survival, and that probably stresses them out, and that probably can't make them the best of partners, you know. So I think if you're rich, you're in a better position for
Oh, yeah, for a
things like
successful marriage, yeah.
relationships.
But
Yeah.
like in terms of like who's getting married, poor people are getting married more. Like successful marriages often come when, you know, they don't have these extraneous factors putting pressure on the marriage, which, like you said, like finances and stuff.
To answer Nathan's question, they account for wealth differences, and the same positive impact is true across all wealth differences, and so it doesn't make a difference what wealth level you're at for the study.
Yeah,
The
it's always
marriage,
beneficial, yeah.
yeah.
So I wanted to tackle something that teacher was talking about, like the difference between an unmarried couple and a married couple. And I think there's something to this, right? Not to say that their love and their commitment to each other is any different, but you hear from married people all the time, right? Like we were together for however many years beforehand, right? And we were committed to each other. We loved each other. Then we got married, and marriage is different, right? That there is something, all right, the je ne sais quoi about marriage that is changes the dynamic of the relationship, right? I'm not exactly sure what it is. I haven't been married, so I can't tell you. But maybe it's the fact that like you are now legally tied, right? That like that the option of leaving isn't just the door anymore, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's I'll finish quickly. Maybe it's the social pressures around it,
Social
right?
pressures.
That like you've both declared yourself in this special quote unquote solemn way, and now you feel like you're stuck in it, right? Maybe it's just like it's like that like psychological, you know, like there's this just psychological shift because you yourself feel that this is something
Is Fawn okay? I don't
this
know.
puts your relationship on a different plane, and now you look at your partner differently, or maybe it's all these things, right? But marriage is different, and so like I think it's like I think it's not like irrational to say that because people have these pressures, right? They feel this way about marriage rather than simply being together otherwise, that it forces them to stay together. And like those outcomes for the children might, on a whole, not for an individual couple, but on a whole across the demographic, might end up better for children, right? So
I think like we do this with like all levels of relationship, right? So like we sort of commit, and the more you get committed and the more you intertwine your life with the other person, the bigger the ramifications are for exiting that relationship, right? So like right in the beginning, you've got like, I don't know, moving a toothbrush into their apartment, right? And that's like nothing, right? It's no commitment. Like you've made a commitment there because you said, I'll be back, right? I'm coming back to this place. That's why I put a toothbrush there. But it's not like a big commitment. You can shrug that off easy and buy another toothbrush, not a big deal. And marriage is like the final, like it's like the deadbolt on the door, like I'm locked in. All right, I'm locking in, right? I'm fully
Ball and
fucking
chain.
intertwined. Yeah, I'm like intertwined into this, right? Like all our finances are intertwined. Legally, we're intertwined, right? This is like I said earlier, it's like the ultimate sign of commitment, right? But like I said, this doesn't necessarily have to be through marriage. We do these things just as a result of being together, more trust in your partner. Like I said, I'm not married to my girlfriend. All our fucking finances are intertwined. I pay for shit, she pays for shit. I owe her money, she owes me money. We don't fucking keep track of this shit anymore, right? Because we just know that we're just, you know, if one of us needs money, we just give the other one money, right? It's in my benefit to make sure my girlfriend is financially stable and vice versa. So we just kind of do this anyway, and marriage is only just a way to sanctify that. It's not actually any like difference between that and like a couple that's already living together.
No,
I mean, I know there are like legal ramifications, right?
I'm sorry.
Don't brush that off. Fun. Oh, we're gonna get to you soon, right? But don't brush that off. That's actually quite important. No, the fact that she has legal access to your funds, right? Like that like a joint bank account, right? Like that's that means something, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to be married for
And
that, do you?
then well, true, but like I'm saying that when you separate, right? You're saying that these things are actually equal, but when you separate, they'll be coming for that money,
Well,
right?
that's why I say like marriage is like another level of commitment, right? So because like I said, like with the moving your toothbrush in, you might have to sacrifice a toothbrush if you decide things aren't going to work out. But when you're married, you have to go through fucking like divorce proceedings. Like the stakes are higher, right? You have to go through like settlements and who gets this and who gets what, who gets custody over the kids, right? The stakes are higher. But like quite frankly, when these things are intertwined, like you'd probably do these things anyway, wouldn't you? If you have kids with someone and you're not married to them, you still have a custody battle. Like if your finances are intertwined and you're not married to each other, you'd still have a fight over that. There's not really that much difference.
So we're gonna go on next, but like I read something from a divorce lawyer, right, on their website, and it's very poignant, saying that marriage is the most legally significant thing that happens in almost everyone's life, right? The most legally the most complex legal agreement you get into when that most people will do, because most of us aren't like CEOs running some Fortune 500 company, right?
What's up,
It's marriage.
Sunshine? What's
and it's
up?
significant and
How
it's
you guys
huge,
doing?
but people don't quite understand
Thank
like the full
you for
complexities of it.
hopping in.
And like maybe we should literally give people classes to understand what you're getting into when you
guys are
married. People have a faint
amazeballs.
idea, but they don't know. But they'll find out the hard way if things fall apart.
Like if anything, that's like a point against marriage, right? It just makes things more difficult. Like you'd have these proceedings one way or another. Like marriage is only going to make this more difficult. Like why would you want that? Like just to show your commitment?
Like, but no, there's more to it. But like,
I have no idea.
Get Fawn in first, but
I don't know.
Don't worry about that.
You just invited me to this this afternoon, and I said sure.
I wasn't laughing at you before, Prime. I can't get over this comment that says nothing says romance like legally obligated. That was just sorry, marriage freaks me out. So it scares me.
It's nothing to be scared of, really. It's not.
No, I know. It's just so my parents are still together. My parents have been together like their whole I don't know. They separated for a little bit of time before I was born, and then got back together and had me. Wow. And me and my sister always talk about how they should not be together. My parents are two people who stayed married for the kids, and they probably shouldn't have. So I don't know if that's probably why it personally scares me. But yeah, I mean, it does seem to be a big commitment, and I kind of agree with Prime that maybe it should be taught even more, and say like you don't learn about marriage in school. I mean, at least I didn't. You don't get like in your health classes, you don't get taught like you get taught about
marriage lessons.
Yeah, you don't get taught about hey, this means that you're contractually obliged to the XYZ or whatever. But I know that I'm assuming it's probably the same in other countries. Like in New Zealand, if you are living with a partner for like I think it's over 3 years, then they basically have the same rights to your stuff as if you were married. I know this because my aunt had to kick out a couple of boyfriends before those 3 years were up, so that she didn't have to give them all of her shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a civil marriage, I think, right? Is what it's called.
Yeah, I don't actually know, but yeah, it sounds like something that most Western countries would have.
Yeah, but so if anyone else wants to jump in, then do that. If not, I'll yell at Spoon some more.
Well, I was gonna say, trying to think, what is New Zealand like? Genuine question. Like, it seems like a pretty cool country. Like, it's like small, good social programs, pretty chill president.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Sorry, that's the American in me.
That's okay. That's okay. I enjoy educating Americans. Um, I mean, like I feel like a lot of I don't know. I feel like because the state of things in the United States can be so messy. I think that a lot of people look to New Zealand as some kind of utopia. Um,
The
but
bastion
but
of hope.
honestly, there's a lot of issues here. And
Is it better than Australia?
it depends what you mean by better. Like socially, possibly. I mean, we still have racism. Obviously, everywhere has fucking racism, but Australia is particularly bad. Sorry, I feel like Prime wants to cut me off because this is off
I
topic.
actually want to get back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just saying New Zealand is not like the perfect utopia that I feel like a lot of people think it is because Jacinda Ardern is like in the spotlight, and I just want to say, please manage your expectations.
Not like you'll be able to go there anyway. They're very strict on who gets to live there.
Stay out. I don't want coronavirus.
I'm from the epicenter. I'm from Florida.
No, get out.
Okay, so I forget what Spoon said, and that I wanted to yell at him about, but maybe I'll think of it later. But I'll find something else to yell at him about. But I did want to move this along before remaining time, because there was lots of parts to this question, and I want to get your opinions on it. Okay, so I asked you. I think I would have this in front of me when I said that, but here it is. So we talked about the couples and all that, right? But like gay marriage, right?
Good.
So so many individuals fought for gay marriage, right? And I imagine gay marriage is legal in New Zealand. Just asking.
Yes, I believe it isn't in Australia still.
Okay.
Australia's
Really?
fucked.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, fair enough. So so many people fought for this, right? But if we are listing, we spent, was it 2 hours or so, listing all the problems of marriage, was this a worthwhile prize, right? For all the things that our gay brothers and sisters could have spent those decades fighting over, was marriage the thing that makes the most sense, right? Rather than, for instance, like economic guarantee, right? I compare this to and I know these aren't exactly the same, so no one needs to yell at me in fucking chat, but like I compare this to when African Americans were freed from bondage in this nation, right? And they were given voting rights. Okay, that's good, great, but like that didn't necessarily grant them freedom, right? Instead, maybe if they had been given economic freedom, which grants you political freedom, then anything else could have flowed after it, right? It's like this. So relating it back to this, and these are not the same, obviously, but that marriage is a symbol, right? More of a status of legitimacy, right? But if our LGBT brothers and sisters were more economically secure, then anything else would have flowed, right? Like all those other things come after having that economic power. And that's just one example of something that can be fought for. So yeah, what do y'all think?
I see what you're saying, but I feel like a big part of the fight for the right to get married is the fact that a lot of the people gatekeeping marriage are people who are anti-LGBT rights. So I feel like a big part of that was a big fuck you. And it's I totally agree that there are more important rights to be fought for, but this I totally see at the same time why it was so important to get gay married,
Yeah, I think that I think it just kind of, the reason why it was fought so hard, the reason why people really wanted gay people to be able to get married, and the gay people themselves really wanted to get married, I think just goes to show that, like, even though we're talking about many of the potential negatives of marriage, marriage is still something people want. People still, I see what you mean, Fawn, when it's like somewhat of a fuck you to like the people telling them, no, you can't get married. But I do think in a bit more of a wholesome way, they just want to be happy,
And like everyone else,
yeah,
they should have the
like
same
everyone
rights
else.
as everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
I think it's
wholesome
that
stuff.
simple, right? If like straight people can get, like, again, I'm not really big on marriage, probably discovered that. But if straight people can do it, gay people should be allowed to do it too. And it's not specifically about marriage, right? It's about equality. So civil partnerships or like civil unions were available for gay people like for a long time, right? You could still do that, and we all agree that they basically have the same benefits, or they might not have historically, but nowadays they certainly do. So it's not about that. It's about the cultural significance of gay people being allowed to get married, and us like normalizing like gay people and being like, yeah, no, if a straight person can do it, a gay person should be allowed to do it. And yeah, I guess there are like more important things to fight for and blah blah blah. But this is like part of it. That's part of the fight, and like that being achieved is very good. And especially with being gay specifically, it's distinct from other issues like for example race. You can't so much hide the fact that you're black, but you can hide that you're gay. So it's harder to be discriminated in that sense on, especially when it comes like economically. And I think gay people do have like a disproportionate amount of wealth, like less wealth, but like not by like such a distinct amount. And that is due to some like marginalization and stuff like that, stigma, blah blah blah. But like I said, it's less so because it's simply just an easier thing to hide, right? It's harder to discriminate about something if you simply just can't discriminate, right? You just don't know. You're not aware of being able to discriminate on that thing. So again, it's not about marriage specifically. It's about equality. It's about if a straight person can do it, a gay person should be allowed to do it as well.
Let's go to Biggs and T-Jump. I want to hear all your opinions on this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Sneaky Debate Man said. I think everybody should be able to have the same rights to do what they want to do. Like I said, I'm not really 100% for marriage in general anyways. I think the things that we have now, we can create solid families and things like that without necessarily having to have marriage. But like you said, like it's about equality. It's about having the same rights. Our Constitution states that everybody should be equal under the law. We have, a lot of cases where that's not necessarily followed, but we're trying to amend those now. One of the things that we've done, recently was the gay marriage thing, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Especially when it's something like that where it has no real negative impetus on anybody else. Like it's really just a net benefit to the people getting married. So I don't really see what argument can be made against it because it's not affecting anybody else in a negative way. Some might say that it might be like, oh, you're basically like advocating for this, this union, but really it's not. We're just saying that these people have the same rights as everybody else.
T-Jump, are you do you live in the States, or are you also a filthy foreigner?
I live on Mars. I'm alone. Yeah, I'm from the States. I'm in Minnesota. Yeah,
Okay.
so I am definitely pro gay marriage. I think that works just as well and sometimes better than regular marriages for all the benefits for lowering crime, lowering poverty, and raising kids. Many of the kid studies involving gay couples, the kids actually turn out better than heterosexual couples. So I think that I'm pro gay marriage for sure.
Yeah, but I guess the question I'm going, well, and this is again to everyone, is that, oh, I go Fawn, go then.
Oh no, I just realized what I was going to say. I think the one reason that I've heard for like anti-gay marriage, which I don't agree with, but I've heard it a lot, is the religious reasons of being like, it's in the Bible that being gay is wrong and marriage is for God. So, and it's like, well, is it for God or is it for the government? Which one is it? Because they should. That is the one thing about marriage that makes me uncomfortable, is how intertwined it makes the church and getting stuff legally done.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it is not good. I don't agree with it, but I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, I guess in response to that, personally, if I think someone has the perspective that marriage is for God, you wouldn't really need to get the state involved.
That's what I think. So
yeah.
that's what I agree. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think you should. Yeah, I don't think that they should be intertwined.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your point.
Yeah. I guess from like those that argue that marriage is a more like, religious thing. I mean, like they can have their opinions on that, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, marriage as we know it really is more for the purpose of like partly the individuals and partly for the state. It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
That I guess just quickly respond to this question because it says, Ugly Pie asked this in chat. To all my marriage lovers on the panel, what about marriage between more or two people? Do the benefits of marriage increase exponentially? I just got to be honest. I don't really know what would be. I know Sneaky was talking about like there's a lot of potential benefits from like polyamorous relationships, but I'm not an expert on that. I know for me, and I don't know if other people would feel this way. I feel like if there was more people in a relationship, it would be a little bit chaotic for me. You know, uh, I think that there would be some people I feel closer to than others, and I understand that like Sneaky was saying that there's like a benefit in that, but like I think let's say like I feel something like let's say there's three people, I feel something more for one person than the other person, and it just kind of feels weird that like the third person's living there, but then like the other people like each other and I get jealous or something. It just feels like there's a lot of complications. I don't know. It's not for me, but it's definitely for other people though. The other people can probably handle that question better.
Okay.
Like one large issue with the data on like polyamorous relationships or like marriages with like multiple like polygamy is that generally speaking these tend to occur in like countries with sort of like very strict patriarchal views where like the man owns the woman or he owns multiple women and stuff like that, or they have like very like set gender roles. So like when we look at like polygamous relationships and stuff like that, be like, are they successful? Like the only kind of source of data we have for these come from places that have just kind of questionable ethics to begin with. So I don't necessarily think that's like reflective of like the possible benefits of this. I mean, I am conjecturing a lot here, but I'm simply just trying to extrapolate like the logical benefits of like monogamy and partnership, and then like trying to maximize that in a setting which would be beneficial to most people.
So, but okay, I guess you're taking this where I was going to go anyway. So with polygamy specifically, right? So you can say that sure, a lot of this data comes from those other countries with maybe social structures that we might disagree with, but polygamy also exists here, and we can also see the terrible outcomes that have been the result. Now, something I think you could say is that polygamy right now only exists in the context of fringe groups. But the data is the data, right? Maybe it's that polygamy and something about that inherently brings all these other issues, right? So, like, if that's the case, if we're looking at all of this, we're seeing that polygamy has these bad outcomes, then should we at least, rather than saying that people, like we were saying before, that these are all your options and pick among them, right? Or rather, should we be saying, okay, well, some things are better than others, right? Teacher is getting to this, right? That some things are better than others, right? So marriage might be a better system, as we know it is, because we have the data there, right? We know it is because you can see with your own eyes these strong relationships. But polygamy, that brings problems, right? That maybe inherently, at least within the context of our culture, right? Maybe not in the context of some other culture, but in context of this culture, that inherently breeds a patriarchal structure, right? So could we say that at least?
Yeah, so like I will say like the data around this is like rickety at best because like it's not very common, and where it is common, then you've got all these other intersections with like culture and ethics and blah blah blah, lots of these other factors, and that's still the same in like Western cultures, which would probably apply to like most of us on this panel. So it is very difficult to say, right? But either way, it's conjecture, right? So going back to what I said earlier, right? I'm proposing like a paradigm shift rather than a model shift, right? Not simply have polygamy under our current social system, but redesign the social system entirely, and then you could have sort of like beneficial, not necessarily polygamous, but like more sort of like communal, communally reliant relationships.
Yeah.
So like it is like either way, it's conjecture. It's just about who's got like the logical steps on their side, I guess.
On.
I know kind of what you mean. I guess I feel like some of the problems that people might have with these kind of ideas is that is if people are in a polygamous or polyamorous relationship in which obviously involves like sex and romantic feelings and stuff like that. Like, what about just a straight up commune?
I think
What
it
about
triggers like a disgust reaction, right?
Yeah.
But like I think this disgust reaction is like inherent to society. Like so, for example, like if you talked about like if I said like gay people, like gay sex, like 100 years ago, that would trigger a disgust reaction, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, we'll hear that like it's not even worth considering, right? It doesn't even ping on the radar.
It sounds like fun. Sounds like party. Sorry.
Exactly, right? Like, funny
Exactly.
It's like a positive reaction to that nowadays, right? So like I think it is like very entrenched in our culture, this sort of like disgust reaction, like I'd be very jealous, or I'd have this, or I'd have that, and I think like logically you could come to the conclusion that that may not be the case. We could change the paradigm of like society and our culture, and we could actually yield a lot of benefits from a society that was more set up towards sort of like being more communal in this sense.
Yeah, like a point that I wanted to bring up is the fact that obviously when we're talking about the nuclear family and we're talking about being with one person and finding that one person and all of that, those kind of family dynamics, this is a very Western cultural ideal, and in Western cultures we are very individualist, and so I think that there's a big that's like a big contributing factor to the social pressure of like find your one person and then do everything with that one person, and you raise your kids, and that's the important thing, is that they're getting everything from their parents, and in reality it just doesn't really work like that. And so I'm half Samoan, and Samoan culture is a lot more, for lack of a better term, communist, and obviously they're not a Western society, and a lot of the time there's a lot of sharing of the parental duties. A lot of the time, if you have a problem child, sometimes you do just send them to live with your brother or sister for a while, and they get to see a different side of life. They're raised by many people, and it's a community thing, and I don't know, it's very healthy. I don't know how else to say it, but that society, while it might not be first world, it is, from what I've seen, a very good society for raising kids. There's a lot of joy and just a lot of like freedom that I see that doesn't come from the nuclear family. The nuclear family can be very isolating sometimes if people have very strict views. Like I was raised very strictly. I couldn't go out and see a lot of my friends when I wanted to, and I don't know, my parents really wanted their ideals to be the only ones that got through to me, which I think is why they specifically didn't. And do you know what I mean? I'm sorry, I end all my thoughts with that, but there's just a lot more ways of living and raising kids and just interacting with society than the Western society that we are used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we said, like there's no data on this, but like all the data is confined with our current paradigm, right? We have to like you kind of have to like shift your thinking out of the current framework of society, rather than just be like, well, this makes sense currently within this context. Well, just change the context, or change like the general framework, and maybe there could be something better, right? You gotta think outside of the box, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was thinking when I was listening to all like the talk about like sort of communal raising of like a kid, um, and Fawn talked about how different cultures handle different things. I think about like Hispanic cultures, even like Filipinos, and I'm sure like other countries around the world do this to some form, where a lot of times family will continue to live together, like like old people growing up with like you live in the same house as like your grandma, for instance.
Yeah.
So for me, when my family faced economic struggle, for example, we got to get huge amount of support from a local family member, which was a big deal, which let us be able to go down the path of renting and then eventually having a mortgage. So all that good stuff. But so I thought, what could we do policy wise to sort of be there for people that don't have a commune to back them or a community to back them? And things like the things in the new reconciliation bill, child care, for instance, universal child care, pre-K, all that good stuff. In a way, even though it's not super personal, it is somewhat community helping out families raising their kids, which, since we're talking about marriage during this whole discussion, could really help people deal with stress and make for better relationships and stable relationships. But yes.
So okay, I want to try this and big weight something. In that, Fawn, you said that marriage is a very Western, like a value, but I'm not sure if marriage itself is that Western value.
Oh,
I think
sorry, I didn't mean
things...
that. I'm not sure if I said that exactly. I meant the nuclear family.
The nuclear family. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah. And so, T-Jump, I'm curious about your opinion here, and to really hone in on what exactly you mean. Is it that you are simply pro the institution of marriage, which is one thing, but you also think that the nuclear family is necessarily a superior form of family rather than another form that includes an extended situation?
Well, there's also data on the nuclear family, but the nuclear family also includes gay couples, so that's also part of nuclear family. So, but yeah, nuclear family does have more supporting data than the other kinds, as far as I know.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, right? So like this is in context of our current society, right? So like within the current society where we encourage like having I have 2 kids and a dog and a picket white fence and blah blah blah. Like, yes, it makes sense that this is beneficial because we promote this, right? This is like what we incentivize. We have like literal like legal benefits for people who are in this situation. So like, of course, yeah, it makes sense that people in that situation do better because we incentivize that as a society, like socially, legally, right? So like, yes, the data does suggest that this is a good thing, but that's only because it's in context of a society that pushes this as a good thing, right? So
I think that's backwards, actually. I think the reason we promote it is because it has been demonstrated to have positive effects, and that's why we give all of these benefits.
I mean, we'd have to do like a lot of historical analysis for that.
Yeah, that'd be hard to prove either way.
I don't really want to like contest that point, but like I see where you're coming from.
I think there's also an argument to be made that the nuclear family is more researched because it is more popular in Western society. I think that there's probably just less data in other regions, like third world regions. Like I don't think that I haven't done research, sorry, but I don't think that there would be as much research on families in third world countries like Samoa, and how that affects people as there are in like how American societies grow in that context, because it's just a very different societies, and it's hard to compare. But I think that there are things to be learned from just different cultures, and I think that maybe they're not, those kind of ideas are not pushed because people think, oh well, but that country is poor, so they're not doing as well, whereas socially they might be happier.
Yeah. So, I guess.
What is Chad talking about? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
We're talking about sex. That's fucking weird.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
confused too.
Chat,
I
please.
was also
Yo,
looking-
pronoun discourse. Holy shit.
No, why?
I was also looking at chat too. But yeah. So in terms of like finding the path, like the most success. So I guess I think it's problematic just saying that we have to look at the data, because especially in social sciences, it's hard to find the data, right?
Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you.
Yeah. Like and just because one thing has positive data doesn't, of course, mean the other thing has negative data. I don't think anyone's said that necessarily, right? I'm just putting that out there. That one option has a lot of successful outcomes doesn't mean the other option necessarily has negative outcomes. And furthermore, in terms of the studies, I think most of the studies were focused on the comparison of like marriage rather than single parenthood, right? And the problems between them, rather than marriage, like a two-person situation rather than the three-person, four-person situation. Or yeah, but I though then again, I do know there are studies with just like a married couple versus unmarried couple, and how long cohabitating individuals. So there's that.
Yeah, we discussed that, didn't we? Like, if
Yeah.
you're like married, you're like locked in, right? So you're less likely to leave that marriage because it's like higher boundaries to leaving, right? So it's not necessarily an indicator of like a happy relationship. It's just a relationship with higher boundaries, right?
It's more like there's more things to discourage leaving.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Rather
It's not
than
necessarily
reasons to stay.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about in terms of child rearing, now again, this is why I said this before, is that over a large group, right, a large demographic, you'll find benefits of having those high walls of exit, right? Like trying to make it work. Now that doesn't mean that each individual couple, right, that's good for them. That's some couples items that just need to break up, right? And having those high barriers just makes it difficult to do that, causes stress, and in fact might have a worse outcome. Like a messy divorce is like I think manifestly worse for a child to go through than something that's clean and easy, some sort of clean, easy, simple breakup, right? But over like a larger demographic, like simply parents deciding that we hit a major bump in the road, but we aren't going to give up because we're in a marriage and that means something, and so we'll stick together, right? And then they overcome whatever it is, right? Because it was something that could be recovered, but simply would take a lot of work that you would not put into if you weren't married, if you weren't tied, if the consequences for trying to break up weren't so unbelievably catastrophic, frankly, right? And then that would be better for childering at the very least,
No,
right?
I'm a little bit torn on that because, like, I feel like it's probably a good thing that they get over their issues as a couple, but perhaps you shouldn't be together if the only reason you stayed together is for, like, material reasons rather than like you actually want to be together, right? You just
I'm
like, oh, well, it's just too
example
much of a
one of
hassle to
that.
break up. So like I understand like you could like get through a rough patch on this basis, and that might be a good thing. But at the same time, I don't know if getting through a rough patch because it was materially like annoying for you is a good thing. I feel like you should probably be getting through that rough patch because you decide you want to be with that person or you want to make it work because you enjoy being with that person rather than any sort of material gain.
Is it necessary? I mean, it can be all kinds of reasons why a person wants to stick together, right? Like it could be multiple reasons, right? So one, it could be.
I know that.
Yeah. I mean, like the point is relationships are complicated, right?
I know,
So,
but
I think
the reason you're
it's
saying
hard.
like they stay together when they're married is because like the boundary to exit is higher, right? And the boundary to exit is higher specifically because it affects your material circumstances, right? And I don't know if necessarily that's a good thing that you stay in relationships because of your material circumstances, even if it does get you through a rough patch and you're otherwise happy.
Maybe it's not that you're staying in a relationship because of that, but you're giving it another try because of that, right? And I think there's a slight difference there.
That's what I mean.
No,
That's what I mean. Like, I think
okay.
you should give it another try because you want to be with that person, right? Because you feel like that person is worth another try, not because of your material conditions.
But
I feel like that's how you probably should be in a relationship. Again, I'm kind of torn because I understand like that like we do have to consider our like material conditions, but at the same time, like on an emotional level, I feel like you should be with somebody because you want to be with them, not because of.
well,
how
no,
things are.
you could still want to be. You could, and at the end, okay. So let's say you were looking at a 50-year marriage, right? And that in that 50-year marriage, there were multiple times where they could have broken up. That if they weren't married, right, they didn't have the boundaries of marriage to keep them penned in together, right, like animals. Then they would have like wandered out, right, wandered out of the pen.
That sounds awful.
But
Oh my god.
it doesn't mean that at the end of those 5 decades, those two people didn't want to be together, right? It simply means that they had an incentive to stay together rather than no incentive to.
I get what you're both saying. I think the reason why this is so hard and can just be like a constant cycle is because there will be some people that are just staying together because of the financial hardship or financial benefits and should have broken up a really long time ago. And there are some people that will be staying together even though it's so difficult because they love each other and they just want to make it work and want to have the best lives together. And again, relationships are complicated and messy. So I can see it both ways. But yeah, ball and chain is really coming into play here, isn't it?
Exactly right. So like consider this, fine. Let me test your paradigm. Okay. So we fast forward 100 years into the future. Sneaky and Prime's communist utopia has been realized. Okay. Material conditions no longer concern anyone because we're completely post-scarcity and everybody has everything they want because we've just organized society so brilliantly that that just happens to be the case. All right. Now there is no incentive to stay with somebody for material conditions. You don't have to worry about your finances. You don't have to worry about housing. You don't have to worry about blah blah blah, all good socialist things, right? So now you don't have this high barrier of exit based on your material conditions, do you? So would you still consider that we should put like a high barrier of exit on this? So there'd be like a penalty for exiting a marriage, right? Because you consider this barrier to be a good thing that actually promotes good relationships.
I'd say no. I'd say that the whole point of marriage is in order to deal with the fact that nature tries to kill you by taking your food and your water and your air, and it's hard to produce those things, and it's easier to produce those things in a family. And so the whole point of marriage is to make all of that junk easier. And if we could solve that in a socialist utopia, or probably I would hope not a socialist utopia, but some kind of utopia, then yeah, there's no point for marriage. So we wouldn't need it anymore.
There we go.
The only utopia is socialist. Thank you.
Socialism is death.
Okay, let me see if I can answer this question. Right. So you're saying all material needs are met, and that would necessarily include like the material needs of like children, right?
Yeah, everything. It's all sorted.
Yeah, all sorted. Would we need to set some sort of a high bar, some sort of like penalty for leaving?
Because like obviously if like there's no like actual like material downside to leaving a marriage because everything's a utopia. Like you're under your premise of like this high barrier of exit is a good thing. Would you impose a penalty for leaving a marriage?
I would not.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess I wouldn't. I see this is testing whether the pen is good or not, right? Like the walls are good and just, but I feel like, I mean, since we won't ever be hitting that utopia, so we won't be arrive anytime soon, right? That the part of the human condition is to always be to have your needs insufficiently met in some ways, right? Then I like okay. Let's talk about.
I know this. I'm asking you a moral question about like what do you value more? Like because like my query with this was I think people should be with people because they value the person and not for material.
No, I understand.
For material reasons, right? So like if we take away material reasons as like a requisite, I'm trying to test your morals of what you value more importantly.
Yeah. No, I understand, and I get you.
Like being with somebody for the sake of being with them, or being with somebody.
Yeah.
So like that, it's a moral
I just
question.
got freaked out. I thought there was a ghost on the stream.
Anytime soon.
Because the fawn left her chair or whatever.
I'm thinking of like billionaires.
I freaked out for a second there.
Who are insanely wealthy, right? And who have, for all intents and purposes, have their material needs met. That like, does marriage provide them some sort of benefit, right? Beyond like a billionaire marrying another billionaire, right? But like in that context, like, would it is marriage provide a benefit at all there? No,
Could make someone happy.
I don't think it does. No, that's what I mean. Other than like this sort of like social status of being like, hey, look, here's a big party to say how much we love each other, which I'm not necessarily against, to be honest. But I think it's a bit odd that we do it in this like weird Christian fashion.
Okay.
Like there's no benefit there, is there? All right, you can have that party regardless. You don't need to have a marriage to be like, yeah, like we really love each other. Here's a party to celebrate that.
Okay, so yeah, what do you all think about that? Like, do you think for billionaires that the concept of marriage is actually even more of a detriment, right? But at the very least doesn't provide any benefits because their material needs are met?
Well, I think oh sorry. You want to go? You can go.
You go ahead and go first.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, I get it. We don't like billionaires, a lot of us. But I mean, they are human beings. They feel emotions to a degree. Obviously.
Debatable, but
debatable. Okay. But I think that I'm sure most people have regular human emotions like the rest of us, unless you're like some weirdo that hangs around Jeffrey Epstein and has no and are like soulless. I think that like most people, even billionaires, probably will like grow up and want to fall in love with somebody. Now, of course, they usually kind of marry within their class, but that's partially just because that's who they're around, But I don't think they always all the time do it for different benefits. I think that maybe I'm just too naive, but I'm sure they do it because they like somebody and the person makes them happy, and I would say that's a benefit.
Yes.
I feel like I missed the prompt. Sorry.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. So I was asking. I was asking that in terms of billionaires, right? Because a Spoon had put up a situation where all material needs are met, and whether we should still have a penalty for people leaving a marriage. Then I ask, right, in terms of like people who are insanely wealthy, does marriage still provide some sort of benefit, right? So like the structure of marriage, does that? Yeah.
It doesn't. Like, I mean, it still provides these like social benefits of like, you know, like child rearing and like having a partner makes you live longer and, you know, all this blah 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 stuff, right? But like there's no like high barrier of exit there to discourage your relationship from ending. There's no like social stigma that you have to conform to because you're just above it, right? It's just like, fuck you. Like, I don't need to tell me what I do. I'm gonna go out and live on my yacht now. Like like you're just so above it at that point that it makes no difference.
I think, yeah. I mean, personally, I don't really give a shit what billionaires do because they don't give a shit what anyone else does. They're just gonna do whatever they want to do, regardless. But a lot of them do seem to be married, and I don't know if that's just because they have, generally speaking, quite traditional views. You know, so marriage.
They got all the stability in the world.
Yeah, and I don't know.
But does it provide a benefit, do you think? Like, is there any reason if you were insanely rich and your partner was also insanely rich?
I think it could provide a benefit in their social standing, in that again, that class of people can generally hold traditional views. So if they're married, then they probably look better to their friends. I don't know.
I don't even think it provides any benefit in terms of social standing. Like I said, like when you're like a billionaire, you are just like removed from society.
Removed from
like,
society. I think
like the reason like you or I. The reason like you or I conform to anything in like society, right, is because I need to exist within society, right? I need to live in a society, right? You're a billionaire, mate. You live on top of society. You live above society. You don't need to fucking conform to what anybody says, right? You can even break the law and get away with it. You can just fucking like sit up there on your fucking ivory tower, like literally, you could buy an ivory tower and just fucking sit up there and do whatever the fuck you like. Like who the fuck? Like you don't need to conform to fucking anyone. You just fucking pay somebody off. You can fucking go live on a yacht. You can do whatever the fuck you like. You're above it
Maybe
all.
they get married to make people think they're not fucking children.
Wow.
Because they
Yeah,
are.
that's a hot take.
Look at Epstein. He was married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite the take.
I'm sorry, I'm memeing.
I think we've seen
seriously.
we've seen especially I believe just within like the last year or two, both Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates got divorced, right? I think there's something to say, and I believe both of them were actually married prior to, maybe not Bill Gates, but I know that Jeff Bezos was married to his wife prior to his business taking off. So I think it does depend on like the situation. Obviously, I think that if you are with somebody when they're making these, you know, as far as like billionaires go, when you're making these like, you know, companies and investments and things like that, I do think there's something where you should be penalized as the person who's succeeding more, because like they have like usually like half their assets and things like that. But then I also think when you have people like Elon Musk, who's married to Grimes now, which they just got married, you know, after he'd already been this, you know, one of the most rich person in the world. I think that it just kind of depends on the situation. So, but I do think that there is a penalty for the billionaires by, you know, again, I don't know if you mean this like from their wives taking their money, because it's still just like them, you know, the rich people or whatever. But I do think there is some form of a penalty instituted there. But I think that
I don't think so. I think like if you've got like 50 billion and your wife takes like 25 billion, like you're still unbelievable. Like,
oh yeah,
like,
but that's still like
right?
in relativity, that's still a big. That'd be like, you know, obviously like it's you know, it scales
like,
differently.
when you have that much money, you're just above it all. When you have that much money, though, you're just above it. It doesn't matter. Like having 1 billion or 20 billion makes no difference. Once you hit 1 billion, you've just got more money than you could just possibly do anything with. It just doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, you could get divorced like 100 times.
Yeah.
and still have more money than.
But it's still, I mean, it's still a penalty though. Like I still understand. Like obviously, it's like you're beyond the scope of like the normal person, right? But like I think that applies to everything in that echelon of income. Like there's like nothing that really touches those people aside from this like percentages lost and gain, right?
Yeah. And those percentages don't really mean anything.
Exactly.
Anyway. So it's just like, again, it's like a nothing. It's like not a downside even then.
Yeah, they're also like greedy fucking gremlins, so they probably would get upset over losing like a teeny tiny percentage. They probably still don't like it, even though it's like the smallest little blip.
I heard this interesting fact, right? And it's like, so Forbes estimated the amount of gold in Smaug's mountain. You know, Smaug from Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
And like, given the current value of gold, they estimated Smaug to be worth like 11 billion. So Jeff Bezos is literally worth more than a gold hoarding dragon.
It's not.
That's awesome.
It's a fucking literal gold hoarding dragon, and he's like
a fucking gold hoarding dragon, motherfucker.
It's a witcher.
All right.
Sorry, getting pressed about it.
That's fine.
I'm just memeing.
Okay. So to my audience, what's going to happen is we're going to continue to our open walk-on panel right after this, right? We'll have open walk-on panel. Audience members like you, yes, you sitting at home may participate. So stick around. I'm going to give these amazing individuals an outro. But yeah, the content does not end. The stream is not over. We're just going to end this particular panel. Then we'll move on to that. All right. So this has been really interesting. Thank you so much, everyone, for stopping by. I'm really glad again that we got the group that we did. So I will give an exit to my man, Stinky Debate Man / Dancing Spoon. Spoon, too long. So happy to have you around. Hope to have you more in the future. I know it's really difficult with the time zones and everything, right? It was easier when you were having your Latin American adventure. But so I'm glad you took time out of your day, your late night, to be here with us. Missed you so much, buddy.
It's good to be back, Prime. I'll be appearing every time you're on at a reasonable time. Like usually you're starting now. It's 4:30 in the morning, man. That's how long I stayed up for this. But yeah, I'm not doing anything special at the moment, so just watch Prime.
All right, thanks so much. All right, next we have we're gonna Nathan next. Nathan, thank you as well for being here, for being a great mod and all that. Nathan, tell a little about yourself.
Well, I'm sure many in chat know me. I am the Nathan Galang on almost every social media. I am really trying to pick up on YouTube content. Here, I'm gonna put this in the chat. This is some recent videos I did. Make sure to like and subscribe. And also, I do TikToks too. That's my biggest platform. 11.3K followers there. Yeah, we on that grind. I've been getting temp banned from posting because of some shit I've been doing, but it's not even that bad. But that's besides the point. I'm not banned no more. I can post again. I'm gonna post again. Maybe not tonight. Maybe soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Next, Biggs. Biggs, thank you for coming through and having a very surprising take. But definitely appreciate your perspective. As always, Biggs, tell a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks Prime again for having me. Like I said in the beginning, you can find me at Biggs8500 on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. I also want to thank the panelists here. I thought we had a really good conversation about this topic. I think we all kind of had similar views, but my biggest take from this is that I think what it really comes down to is the love that people have and the relationships that they can grow from that love. I think that marriage, while in some cases may be beneficial, I don't think it's necessarily required. I think that people can have these strong family units without necessarily having these declarations or things like that. But I also do respect the legal protections that these institutions give. But to me, I think marriage should have been completely out of the purview of the government. I think as far as like the religious side of things, I think marriage can be fine from that side. But I do understand the government having some type of influence on how people relate to one another. Obviously, if you're living with somebody for long periods of time and you're basically sharing your life together, I think you should be able to get the same benefits that people that get married have. So overall, I think that marriage is a good thing in general, but not necessarily a requirement. I think as long as people love each other and can have these supporting family networks for themselves and for their children, I think that's just like a net benefit to society overall. And if people want to get married and that can be something they can include in that, I think I'm all for it. But again, like I said, it's not for everybody. I personally, I think, I don't know. I don't know if you ever answered T-Jump, but I didn't know if you were married or not. You can either shake your head or not. I don't know if you want to answer it. You're not? Okay. So I'm the only married person on the panel. Is that my understanding? Correct?
Apparently.
Okay. So I'm glad I went through with it, even though I'm a person that disagrees with it in general. But I do think that it's something that if people want to do, they can do. So again, thank you all for having this delightful conversation with me, and take it easy.
Thank you. All right, next. T-Jump. Unless I'm getting that name wrong. I don't know. You tell me. But T-Jump, thank you so much for coming through. Really nice meeting you. This is our first time interacting, and I hope to see you again in the future. So T-Jump, tell them about yourself.
Yeah, nice meeting you guys too. I mean, it was better than Dylan. Dylan Burns said it was J Trump. So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. That was my fault. I've had a few drinks, so I'm sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, I'm a YouTuber. I do conversations with professors and philosophers from different colleges about epistemology, ethics, morality, that kind of stuff. Check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/tjump, and on Twitch, twitch.tv/tjump. Thanks again for having me on. It was nice meeting all you guys, even though you're all dirty socialists. But happy to come talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
I'm a social democrat.
I'm a libertarian. What are you talking about?
I'm a capitalist.
Socialism gang. Okay.
Full blown coffee. No.
Feel free to put like your links in my chat, T-Jump, so people can find you. But yeah, okay. Last and honestly, quite possibly best, we have Fawn. Fawn, I am like over the moon that we could finally get you here. It's been a bit of a struggle, but you're finally here, and I really enjoyed spending time with you. I really hope to do so again in the future. It'd be amazing because you've got a lot of great opinions, a lot of interesting perspectives, and I think my community would love to hear more from you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I don't know. I enjoy watching and listening to this show a lot of the time. I lurk or troll chat, and I'm glad to be representing the femmes on here as well, the e-girls. We need that representation, and I appreciate everyone on the panel for even though we had obviously conflicting views, everyone is super super nice and just respectful and didn't devolve into just screaming matches. So that was really nice, and I feel like we all found some common ground together, and that made me really happy. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you. I'm glad that this topic that I randomly discovered. I discovered marriage, by the way, guys. I'm glad that it was deep enough to cover us for the whole time.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear other opinions.
Well, it's time for the open panel next. It's time for blood.
Also, I think Spoon should do ASMR content. I'm just saying with that voice. I was like,
I second that.
Let's do some ASMR content. That's a good mic for it. Good voice.
There you go, Spoon. You got your in. No, really?
I'm just British. It's simple as that.
I got a question.
No.
How
There's like a softness to your voice. Sorry, Nathan.
I have to speak about this later.
All right. I'm going to end the stream now because our panel's finishing up. I want to thank you all for hanging out. Let's go ahead and we will raid Let's raid Stardust. Okay, everybody? Thank you all for hanging out, and have a great evening. You guys are all amazing. Thank you so much. I love you too, Looter. Peace.